Chapter 1421, Visiting the Beast God Hall. Since he's humiliated me, he needs to pay the price. I won't harm his life, but I definitely can't let him off so easily, the heavenly enchantress coldly replied. Her white hand struck her zither, and the zither immediately shot toward Jian Chen with a powerful pulse of energy. As the zither shot out, it smashed through space, forming a pitch-black crack along its trajectory, which hung there like a black line. The strike had actually reached the level of Saint Emperors and was far more powerful than an attack from a regular Saint Emperor. Even though the heavenly enchantress was best at using the music of the zither to fend off her opponents, her strength did not lie solely with the musical instrument. Even without her zither, she still possessed an extremely terrifying level of strength. Jian Chen was stern. He dared not receive the heavenly enchantress attack carelessly. Even though he now possessed the strength to fight receival experts, he needed to use the azulate swords to do that. Without the swords, his strength would suffer. However, Jian Chen clearly did no need to use his swords against the zither that flew toward him. A gleam of light flickered through Jian Chen's eyes and chaotic force circulated within him. At the same time, a layer of dazzling white light condensed from the surroundings, enveloping him completely. Jian Chen was going to use the protection of the light from the way of the sword to handle an attack from the heavenly enchantress to avoid using the two swords. When Jian Chen had completed his preparations, the zither arrived with tremendous energy. Jian Chen struck out with his right palm, which collided with the zither. Bang! The two collided and immediately erupted with a heavy sound. The two of them possessed great control over their power, so they prevented energy from shooting out and destroying the mountain, but the ground still cracked as the entire mountain shook gently. The toughness of the heavenly enchantress zither was just shocking. Jian Chen felt like his hand had struck extremely tough steel. The great force numbed his entire right hand and also made him retreat uncontrollably. The zither came to a halt, having been stopped by Jian Chen. However, it did not return to the heavenly enchantress and instead remained in the air. At this moment, Jian Chen caught the smell of a certain fragrance. The heavenly enchantress had appeared before Nubis with a purple flash, striking his chest with a gentle palm. Her true intentions were only to teach Nubis a lesson. She had attacked Jian Chen with her zither only to keep him busy. Nubis' soul had still yet to recover from the zither music. He stood there in a daze. His mind was still in a mess. As a result, he did not put up any defenses to protect himself from the heavenly enchantress' palm strike. Being struck, his entire body was thrown far away, only falling out of the air several hundred meters away. He then rolled off a cliff, suffering a horrible outcome. Jian Chen gently sighed as he watched Nubis roll down the mountain. He was filled with a sense of helplessness. Nubis could offend anyone he wanted except her, yet he just had to choose the heavenly enchantress, whose strength Jian Chen did not know, to offend. Nubis was just making trouble for himself. Jian Chen did not go and help Nubis. He allowed him to roll down the mountain, crashing into rocks and rolling through bushes. With his body as a Class 9 magical beast, the collisions would not be able to harm him at all. It would just reduce him to a complete mess and hurt his pride as a Saint Emperor. However, Jian Chen became shocked by the strength that the heavenly enchantress had displayed. He believed that this was not all she had. The heavenly enchantress left, carrying her zither with a sunken face and leaving Jian Chen standing where he was. Nubis returned to his senses at the bottom of the mountain. He only suffered scratches, but his confidence had been shattered. He stood there in dejection as fear flooded the depths of his eyes. He had even made up his mind about death as he gazed at the line of flat bushes where he rolled down the mountain. She's a demoness I say. A terrifying demoness. Nubis no longer stayed any longer on the island. As soon as he had returned to his senses, he immediately fled. At the same time, he said to Jian Chen through a communication technique, "Brother, I'll be leaving first. I'll be waiting for you 10,000 kilometers away." Jian Chen shook his head with a helpless smile as he watched Nubis desperately flee. He returned to the cave to watch over Xiao Bao. Jian Chen stayed a few more days on the island. After Xiao Bao had learned everything Jian Chen could pass on to him, Jian Chen understood it was time for him to leave. The next day, Jian Chen bid farewell to Xiao Bao and the heavenly enchantress. He left behind another great pile of heavenly resources, for Xiao Bao's cultivation needs, before leaving the island. He flew toward the vast sea. Jian Chen had left 10 fifth-grade violet cloud peaches for the two of them and the same number of comprehension tea leaves. The amount was enough to last them 500 years. "Daddy, you have to come visit me soon. I'll be waiting for you here," Xiao Bao demanded as he waved at Jian Chen from the mountain. He did not receive a response from his father. Jian Chen had already vanished into the horizon. The heavenly enchantress gazed in the direction Jian Chen had disappeared in a daze. Her emotions were mixed as she thought about something. 10,000 kilometers away, Jian Chen reunited with Nubis. Although it had been several days already, Nubis still seemed rather dispirited, clearly still hung up on the shock he had received a few days ago. "Jian Chen, I, the great Nubis, swear that I am never returning to Three Saint Island again. I never want to see that demoness ever again." Nubis fumed and made a promise as soon as he saw Jian Chen. Nubis would never forget everything that had happened a few days ago, now forever etched in his head. When he had returned from the Beast God continent earlier, he had been teeming with pride and confidence, yet he had suffered horribly. Jian Chen became stunned by what he heard before breaking into laughter. "I want to pay a visit to the Beast God continent. Do you want to come along?" Nubis was surprised. His interest was immediately piqued as he responded, "The Beast God continent? For the Beast God Hall? You want the young winged tiger god to enter the Beast God Hall for the legacy?" "Yes," Jian Chen replied firmly as if it was nothing. "Hee, I've never seen the Beast God Hall before, so I might as well go with you this time. Even if we get surrounded by the 3 Class 9 magical beasts when the time comes, there's no need for me to fear," Nubis chuckled. It would obviously be better the sooner Jian Chen went to the Beast God Hall, so he clearly did not fly there leisurely while enjoying the scenery like what Nubis had done before. He got Nubis to create a space gate that connected to the center of the Beast God continent. Then the two of them vanished through it. Chapter 1422, Legacy of the Beast God, 1. The Beast God Hall stood in the very center of the Beast God continent. A majestic hall hung 10,000 meters in the air, radiating with a brilliant glow. The structure was extremely large, stretching 10,000 meters in length, width, and height. It seemed like a small city. The Divine Hall was named the Beast God Hall. It possessed an irreplaceable position on the Beast God continent because it had been created in the ancient times by the winged tiger god using the essence of the earth. It had become a holy land for all the magical beasts on the Beast God continent as well as the place where the experts of the continent cultivated. The Divine Hall possessed 99 floors. Each floor was 100 meters tall with a huge area. Aside from the 99th floor, where no one has ever set foot in, the other floors were occupied by the 98 strongest people of the continent. The top 3 floors were where the 3 Class 9 experts of the continent cultivated. However, after the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints, the Beast God continent had suffered heavy losses. Many of the 99 floors had become empty, over 2/3 of all the floors. A person sat on the 96th, 97th, and 98th floors of the structure. They were the 3 Saint Emperors of the Beast God continent, the Tiger Emperor, Peng Emperor, and Kaiser. However, the 3 of them were all sickly pale. Their faces were haggard, bearing weakness. The 3 of them had been severely injured in the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints. Without the help of a radiant Saint Master, it was impossible for them to recover in such a short amount of time even as Class 9 magical beasts. But, at this very moment, the 3 experts suddenly opened their eyes simultaneously. They stared in the same direction. Their gazes seemed to be able to pierce through the obstructions of the Divine Hall and clearly see the world outside. At the same time, the calm space 100 kilometers from the Divine Hall suddenly began to ripple. A space gate rapidly formed and Nubis and Jian Chen emerged together, by each other's sides. The two of them hovered 10,000 meters in the air, allowing them to see far. Even though the continent was riddled with mountains, they could still see the Grand Divine Hall in the distance 100 kilometers away. Is this the Beast God Hall? Although I'm a magical beast, this is the first time I've seen the Divine Hall that holds a supreme status in the hearts of all magical beasts, Nubis mumbled as he stared at the Divine Hall in the distance. He had come to the continent before, but since he feared the 3 Saint Emperors, he had chosen to not set foot here. Jianchen also examined the Divine Hall with his eyes. Each side of the Beast God Hall was the same length, like a cube. It was clearly different from all the other Divine Halls he had come across before. However, Jianchen could clearly sense the pulse of an extremely terrifying energy within the Divine Hall despite the special exterior. He felt shocked by how powerful it was. This Beast God Hall is definitely much more powerful than the Sea Goddess Divine Hall, Jianchen thought. At that moment, he could not help but compare the Divine Hall to the Supreme Divine Hall in Mercenary City. The Beast God Hall had been constructed by one of the 4 ancient champions, the Winged Tiger God, while the Supreme Divine Hall in Mercenary City had been left behind by the greatest human expert, Mo Tianyun. The 2 Divine Halls both held an extraordinary significance to their respective continents. They were the greatest creations of the magical beasts and humans. I may have gone to the Divine Hall left behind by Senior Mo Tianyun in the past, but I was too weak back then. Although I could sense how extraordinary he Divine Hall was, I was unable to see the exact details of the Divine Hall clearly, Jianchen thought. He could not help but imagine the floating Divine Hall he had met Tianjian in. Jianchen and Nubis flew toward the Beast God Hall together, but before they could approach the structure, 3 figures simultaneously flew out of it. They glanced over the 2 of them. The 3 of them were the greatest experts on the Beast God continent. Aside from the Saint Emperor of the Peng clan, Zhangxiong, who faintly smiled, Kaiser and Lankyros both revealed extremely sunken faces. They were quite a horrifying sight. If Jianchen had been the same as before, he would have been smashed to a pulp just because he was a human, regardless of his disagreements with the 2 Saint Emperors. However, strength had given Jianchen the power to look down on the world. Even though they had once fallen out with Jianchen, Kaiser and Lankyros could say nothing and only fume as they watched Jianchen swagger toward the Divine Hall. They could not afford to take him on as an opponent. So it's Sovereign Jianchen. I represent the Beast God continent when I welcome Sovereign Jianchen. If there is anything we can assist you with, please tell us. Zhangxiong clasped his hands at Jianchen with a smile. He was neither arrogant nor humble. He then glanced at Kaiser and Lankyros and seemed to take pleasure in their suffering. Jianchen possessed quite a good impression of the Peng Emperor and even felt some admiration for him, because he was the only Saint Emperor who had not become involved with Xiao Bai's matters. He had not taken part in making things difficult for Jianchen during the fight for the Saint's Fruit in the Death Nest and was the only one who had put his life on the line and battled to the end when they had fended off the foreign world. Jianchen and Zhangxiong greeted each other amicably. Afterward, Jianchen turned his eyes to Kaiser and Lankyros and faintly smiled. Looking at your reaction, the 2 of you don't seem to welcome me very much. The 2 of them clenched their jaws as they stood there with dark faces. Even though they were utterly furious because of Jianchen's arrival and did not welcome him at all, they dared not to say anything. It was even more impossible for them to yield to Jianchen because they were the supreme experts of their races. They possessed their pride. Nubis immediately sneered when he saw them. He took a step forward and said, "Sirs, do you really not welcome the 2 of us? According to the rules of the Beast God continent, do you want to chase us away?" As he said that, a tremendous presence radiated from Nubis. He had exposed his 9th-class strength. The 3 magical beasts all revealed different expressions and finally turned their gazes away from Jianchen to Nubis. They had placed all their attention on Jianchen before and unintentionally ignored Nubis' existence. Only now did they discover in shock that Nubis was also a Class 9 magical beast. Kaiser and Lankyros looked at each other. They could see the helplessness and the grievances within each other's eyes. They had both trampled over others in the past, but this had never happened to them before. Their greatest enemy had come to their lair, yet they dared not to say a single word, afraid of creating a disaster. There naturally is nothing that can obstruct your way, but you cannot enter the Beast God Hall, Lankiros said reluctantly. His complexion was extremely unnatural. Chapter 1423, Legacy of the Beast God, 2. The Beast God Hall was left behind by the winged tiger god in ancient times. There are a total of 99 floors, and the 99th floor can only be entered by a winged tiger god. It's said that the legacy of the ancient winged tiger god is there, but after all these years, no one has ever set foot there, which is why the 99th floor has always been sealed off. The only way there is through the 98th floor. Sungxiong explained from one side. Kaiser's face darkened even more. The gaze he shot toward the Peng Emperor hid deep killing intent. He obviously knew why Jianchen had come to the Beast God Hall. He had killed the young winged tiger god's father in the past, so he had already become a permanent enemy of the winged tiger god. If he ended up receiving the legacy, Kaiser would end up dead for sure. This was because the winged tiger god would definitely take revenge on him for killing his father. I thank Senior for the explanation. Jianchen clasped his hands at Sungxiong before making his way to the Divine Hall. Stop. As a human, you cannot set foot in the Supreme Beast God Hall. Otherwise, you would be committing blasphemy against the entire continent. You would be treading over the dignity of the entire continent, Lankiros said with a horrible complexion. Come at me if you want to stop me, Jianchen coldly replied. He walked toward the Beast God Hall with firm strides. He had no intention of stopping. Nubbies followed beside him excitedly. Kaiser and Lankiros watched Jianchen rapidly move further away as they gritted their teeth. In the end, they could only helplessly watch as Jianchen entered the 98th floor of the Beast God continent. They no longer possessed enough strength to stop Jianchen now. Sungxiong gazed at Kaiser and Lankiros before gently sighing inside. He then followed Jianchen and Nubbies into the 98th floor of the Beast God Hall. Kaiser and Lankiros were left standing where they were with dark expressions. Their eyes flickered uneasily, and they did not follow Jianchen into the Divine Hall. The two of us are nowhere near Jianchen's opponent even if we work together. Jianchen has not claimed our life, but there's still the young winged tiger god. As long as Jianchen is present, we can't do anything to it, and once it reaches the 9th class through the legacy of the Beast God, we won't be its opponent even if we work together, Lankiros said through a communication technique. He felt very heavy-hearted. Kaiser silently pondered for a while before responding. We've had some disagreements with Jianchen in the past, but they haven't reached the point where we can't reconcile with Jianchen. At the same time, we've contributed in the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints, which is why Jianchen has not killed us. However, the winged tiger god is different. After all, its father was technically killed by us, so the winged tiger god's enmity for us has already reached a point of no return. It's just a pity that we still can't control the Beast God Hall, or dealing with Jianchen would have been easy. We can only leave the Beast God continent now. The world is only so big. An Origin Realm expert will not find it difficult to find us, so where can we run to? Lankiros asked. We can conceal our tracks, where even Jianchen would need some time to find us. And I believe, soon, the next wave of attacks from the world of Forsaken Saints will arrive. Jianchen may be very powerful, but he's definitely not the opponent of the sovereigns from the world of Forsaken Saints. Who knows if he and the winged tiger god can survive the next battle? As long as they die, there's no need for us to remain in fear. However, we need to find a place to hide ourselves until then. The best place right now would be to hide in the most dangerous place of the Tian Yuan continent, the Death Nest. Kaiser gnashed his teeth as grievances filled his eyes. He had never ever thought that a day like this would come in the past, where he would be forced to leave the Beast God continent and the region he ruled over. We should not tarry. Let's leave right now. Kaiser and Lankiros concealed their presences and carefully left. They were afraid Jianchen would detect their departure. However, what they did not know was that as soon as they had begun to move, Jianchen suddenly turned his head in their direction while the Beast God Hall. He had already discovered their intentions. Jian Shen, those Class 9 magical beasts owe a blood debt to that little tiger of yours. Are you just going to let them leave? Nubis asked Jian Shen, clearing sensing their departure as well. Xiao Bai's the winged tiger god after all. There's no need for us to interfere with avenging his father. Once Xiao Bai truly matures, he'll need to take revenge personally and kill his enemies, Jian Shen said in a deep voice. He was not afraid of Kaiser and Lankyros disappearing. This world was not particularly vast to Origin Realm experts. Since they've already left, that would be equivalent to abandoning their positions in the Beast God Hall. The 96th and 98th floors are now without owners. Jian Shen, there's still some wealth that they've left behind. It all belongs to you now, Zhangxiong said. He was amazed. Back then, Kaiser and Lankyros had led the experts of the continent to attack the Tian Yuan continent. Jian Shen was forced to leave his home and seek refuge in the Sea Realm in the end. Yet now, Jian Shen had forced Kaiser and Lankyros into abandoning their positions on the Beast God continent to flee. This really was karma. There's no hurry. Let's get Xiao Bai to enter the 99th floor for the legacy first. We can search through the items they've left behind afterward, Jian Shen said as he leisurely made his way through the 98th floor. He was amazed because the energy of the world on that floor was extremely dense. It seemed to be 100 times denser than the energy outside, even denser than the miniature worlds of the Protector clans. No wonder the Beast God continent had 3 Saint Emperors while the humans only had 1, who had only managed to break through by coming up with a cultivation path himself. Looks like all the mysteries are explained here. If you cultivate for long periods of time in the Beast God Hall, the rate at which you can cultivate is incomparable to the outside world, Jian Shen thought. Zhangxiong led the way for Jian Shen as they made their way to the entrance of the 99th floor. Although Zhangxiong had always stayed on the 97th floor, he had a rough understanding of the layout of every floor, which was why he was familiar with the 98th floor. Jian Shen passed through many corridors under Zhangxiong's lead before finally arriving at the entrance to the top floor. The entrance was not a flight of stairs, but an extremely complicated teleportation formation. Chapter 1424, Legacy of the Beast God, 3, The teleportation formation was extremely large. It was 50 meters wide and had been carved into the ground. It seemed extremely mysterious. Even though it had not been activated, it seemed like it was constantly spinning. If someone placed their attention on it, they would feel a sudden force from the formation tug at their soul, as if they were about to be sucked into the formation. Jian Shen examined the formation for some time and gradually became stern. He had seen teleportation formations before and had even obtained one from the Divine Hall of the Underworld sect. However, all the teleportation formations he had seen in the past were not as mysterious as the one in the Beast God Hall. Even Jian Shen felt dizzy if he stared at the formation for too long. He felt extremely shocked by this fact. After all, his soul was far more powerful than it had ever been in the past, yet it was not strong enough to discover the mysteries of the teleportation formation. This could only mean that the quality of the teleportation formation was unbelievable. Looks like this is the teleportation formation leading to the 99th floor. I've only learned about the existence of this formation from some ancient records. This is my first time seeing it as well. Zhangxiong stared at the formation before him in interest, before sighing emotionally. The records say that there is a supreme killing formation hidden within the teleportation formation, which will kill any person who tries to touch or destroy it, no matter how powerful they are. Even if they've reached the apex in this world, they won't be able to withstand a single attack from the formation, dying in an instant. The killing formation will activate as soon as the teleportation formation is activated. Only the winged tiger god can survive the killing formation, Zhangxiong continued. The gaze he used to look at the formation with contained some surprise and doubt. What if an Origin Realm expert steps into it? Jian Shen asked. Zhangxiong frowned slightly with that. After a moment of thought, he said, the records say that even those who have attained the very apex of the world will be killed in a single strike. I wonder if it's referring to Saint Emperor or the Origin Realm. If it includes the Origin Realm, it probably has the terrifying power to kill Origin Realm experts. Nubis laughed in uncertainty when he heard that. He said, "Who passed down this information in the ancient records?" He's actually described this formation as being so powerful that it can even kill Origin Realm sovereigns. "Of course it's the ancient winged tiger god," responded Sanxiong. Nubis was stunned by the answer and immediately became much sterner. This teleportation formation can only be activated by the bloodline of the winged tiger god. "Jian Chen, please let out the winged tiger god. It can only rely on itself for what will happen next." "No one can help it," said Sanxiong. He was the only Saint Emperor who had protected Xiao Bai among the three from the continent. The white tiger had awakened from cultivation several days ago and had learned from Jian Chen that he was taking him to the Beast God Hall for the legacy of the Beast God. As a result, the tiger had spent the past few days waiting for Jian Chen to bring him news in the artifact space. Jian Chen immediately contacted the artifact spirit in order to let out Xiao Bai. Jian Chen had gotten him to stay within the artifact space because he wanted to prevent any schemes that Kaiser may have planned in the Beast God Hall from occurring. With a flash of golden light, the white tiger appeared within the Beast God Hall. It could control its size as it wished, so it was only a meter-long tiger right now. It was covered with snow-white fur that let out a hazy, white glow. Powerful pulses of energy could be clearly sensed from every strand of its fur, as if any single hair on its body could easily be used as a weapon. Its two wings were tightly furled on its back. They were covered with a simple patterning, appearing extremely ordinary yet also seemingly hiding deep mysteries of the world within them. This time, Rum Guinness, who had remained in seclusion for many years in the artifact space, emerged as well. Over the past few years, her strength had undergone an overwhelming change as well. She had only been a Class 7 magical beast in the past, but she had reached the 8th class now and was at the 7th heavenly layer. Rum Guinness' strength could increase so much in such short time obviously because of the comprehension tea and a violet cloud peach. Sanxiong obviously recognized the mother of the winged tiger god. He nodded his head at her amicably before turning his attention away from her. His gaze became fixated on the winged tiger god. "We magical beasts can assume a human form as soon as we reach the 7th class. Some unique species don't even need to reach the 7th class to assume a human form. I never thought that the winged tiger god would still be in a beast form despite reaching the 8th class now. The records say that the ancient winged tiger god always appeared before its people in its beast form. Does that mean that the winged tiger god can never assume a human form?" Sanxiong murmured to himself. A sliver of doubt and confusion appeared in his eyes. The white tiger gazed at the teleportation formation ahead before looking at Jian Chen and Rum Guinness. Its gaze was filled with reliance and closeness. It did not enter the teleportation formation immediately. Jian Chen rubbed the white tiger's furry head out of habit and his gaze became gentle. He said softly, "Xiao Bai, this is a fortuitous encounter that belongs to you. It will all be up to you, so get through the upcoming journey. We cannot give you any support at all. Go and accept the legacy that belongs to you. You will have to take revenge for the death of your father yourself. Child, your father is looking over you from heaven. You must not disappoint your father. You have to obtain the legacy of the great beast god." Rum Guinness' eyes were brimming with tears as she emotionally added encouragement. The white tiger's gaze immediately became determined when it saw the tears pool in its mother's eyes. It let out a deep growl, turned around, and walked toward the teleportation formation. The formation had been activated by a drop of the white tiger's blood. It immediately began to shine with a dazzling white light, enveloping the white tiger. At the same time, the killing formation hidden within it appeared. It separated the space of the formation from the outside world and a terrifying glow of death descended. The glow enveloped the entire space of the formation. Jian Chen's face abruptly changed when the glow of death appeared. The light made him feel like the world was ending. At that moment, he even felt that if the light made it outside, it was enough to annihilate the entire world or cleave the entire universe into two. It seemed like the entire world and universe could not withstand a single attack from the light. Chapter 1425, Legacy of the Beast God, 4. At that moment, Jian Chen could not help but recall the Spirit King. If he compared the Spirit King to the glow of death, the outcome would have shocked Jian Chen because the Spirit King would not have been able to endure it at all. He would have been completely annihilated by the light in the end. The war god Ergens once said that the winged tiger god had surpassed the limitations of a lifespan and is able to live as long as the world exists. That's a representation of godhood. Is he at godhood? Jian Chen asked himself. He was greatly astounded by the terrifying light. He finally believed that the ancient records did not exaggerate anything at all. As soon as something that was not another winged tiger god had activated the formation, they would have been annihilated, even if they had reached the apex of the world in this world. This apex was not referring to Peak Saint Emperor but the origin realm. Sanxiong and Nubis also revealed drastically different expressions as well. They could obviously sense how terrifying the killing formation was. Just tiniest bit of presence that had managed to leak out made them shiver inside. If they had to take the full brunt of the formation, they could no longer imagine the final outcome. Rum Guinness suffered even more than them. She stumbled back several dozen steps and became utterly pale. Shock and fear filled her face. The way of slaughter. This winged tiger god has actually comprehended the way of slaughter to such a profound level. He's not of this world. Just who is he? Does he come from? At the same time, the sword spirits softly murmured to themselves as well. They were very stern. The terrifying glow of death descended from the sky and only swept through the area enclosed by the formation. It seemed like it was destroying everything in the formation, but when it landed on the white tiger, its body harness passed through. In the end, the glow of death completely vanished after it reached the edge of the formation. At the same time, the teleportation formation had completely charged up. It sent the white tiger away. A few cracks followed as the huge teleportation formation on the ground shattered. The white tiger discovered that it had actually arrived in a sea of stars after leaving the 98th floor of the Beast God Hall. The stars covered the area as far as it could see, countless galaxies shine down. Huge meteors would swoop by from time to time at unbelievable speeds in the vast space, either disappearing into the distance or colliding into huge planets in the end. Slaughter rules over life. It reigns supreme above all life forms and moves through the fates of all life. At this moment, a tremendous voice rang through the void, reverberating in the white tiger's ears like a huge bell. To comprehend the great way of slaughter, you must first comprehend the source of life, which is known by the extreme yin that gives birth to yang and the extreme yang that gives birth to yin. The opposite is obtained when approaching the extremities. The way of slaughter is death while the origins of life is birth. If death and life become one, there will definitely be conflict. Only by balancing the two can you attain the true way. Suddenly, the landscape before the white tiger changed. A huge planet had appeared. It was covered with wastelands but lingered in a deathly silence. There were no signs of life at all. There, the white tiger seemed to experience the endless flow of time, but it felt like the blink of an eye at the same time. After a period of time that even the white tiger did not know how long had passed, a few interesting phenomena gradually appeared on the huge planet after alternating between yin and yang. These phenomena all originated from the rocks or natural climate of the planet, all forming odd life forms in the end. Some were formed from rock, others were formed from rain, and there were even some formed from the wind. From then on, the dead planet had gained its first forms of life. After another length of time that the white tiger could not fathom, vegetation gradually appeared on the planet. After countless revolutions around the sun, the vegetation attained self-awareness, becoming another odd form of life. After countless years, the life forms of rock, vegetation, rain, and wind all evolved differently. They formed various powerful races, and the planet brimmed with life. Among these races, the white tiger had discovered the beasts that it was extremely familiar with. During that period of time, the life of the planet had reached utmost prosperity. However, a cataclysm descended at this very moment. A terrifying rain of fire descended from the sky, punching countless holes into the planet. The entire planet was devastated. Mountains and earth cracked, huge tidal waves were kicked up, and lava shot into the air, leading to the extinction of all life. In the blink of an eye, the planet teeming with life had fallen back into silence. There were no signs of life. The planet began to settle down, and after countless more years, it gave birth to another wave of life. Gradually, vegetation reappeared, and the planet slowly made its way back to its former glory. When the planet had become prosperous once more, a huge meteorite fell from the sky, smashing into the earth. It immediately caused the planet to fall apart. The powerful force had wiped out all life. The huge planet had been reduced to several smaller planets now, which floated silently in the vastness of space. But, after even more time, new waves of life appeared on the smaller planets, but they were all met with extinction in the end. Some of the extinction events were caused by objects from outer space while others were caused by the lifeforms themselves. It seemed like an endless cycle, a story. The white tiger watched this silently as confusion filled its eyes. However, time seemed to move extremely quickly in outer space. In the blink of an eye, countless more years had passed, and this occurred time and time again. Life and death replaced each other. The initial confusion in the white tiger's eyes finally vanished after countless years, and they began to brighten up. Through the light, it seemed to have understood and comprehended something. The end of life is death, while death is the birth of life. Once life reaches its peak, approaching its extremity, the opposite will occur. At the same time, once death reaches its extremity, there are chances that life will appear as well. Life and death are like yin and yang. They must coexist harmoniously and cannot turn on one another. The white tiger had understood that truth. At that moment, it sensed its soul rapidly grow as it underwent a qualitative change. To understand life and death is to comprehend the true essence of life and death and to obtain its source. The great voice boomed once more, causing the entire universe to tremble. The white tiger felt the world spin, and when it woke up once again, it discovered itself on a planet teeming with life. It had become a stalk of medicinal herbs growing in a forest. He was eventually harvested by a herbalist and was used to make a bowl of medicinal soup to save someone from death's door. His life had ended to save another. After that, the white tiger became a human, a bird, a beast, and all the various plants in the forests and mountains. He experienced life and death time and time again as he comprehended the true essence of life and death in order to obtain its source. With every life and every death, it felt like a cycle. Every life and death he experienced seemed like a cumulative deposit of knowledge. Gradually, he understood more and more and his understanding of life and death deepened. Finally, after countless lives and deaths, after countless cycles, he understood the true essence of life and death and obtained its source. Chapter 1426, Sacred Feathered Tiger Emperors. His soul rapidly grew once more, undergoing a drastic metamorphosis. 2 specks of light had appeared in his soul as it strengthened. These were seeds, the sources of life and death he had obtained after comprehending their true essence. One represented death, the other represented life. The illusion ended. The planet beneath the white tiger vanished and the cosmos shattered. When he saw the landscape around him, he discovered that he had returned to the Beast God Hall. This floor was extremely different from the 98th floor. A statue of a white tiger with 2 wings stood in the center of the room. Its wings were completely unfurled. They seemed to be able to blot out the sky and rip through worlds. A 100-meter-tall platform stood at the end of the floor. The platform only possessed a single throne. There was nothing else on the floor aside from the statue, platform, and throne. The second sacred feathered tiger emperor, you have finally come. I have waited for this day for a very long time. At this moment, a voice filled with vigor rang out. Beside the white tiger, a man in white clothes hovered a meter from the ground. He shone with a gentle, white light, obscuring his appearance. The white tiger let out a deep growl as he observed the man in interest. However, he sensed an extremely close presence radiating from the man. Correct, I am that winged tiger god that appeared in ancient times. However, the winged tiger god is only a name given to us by others. Our true identities are sacred feathered tiger emperors, also known as white tiger emperors. Sacred feathered tiger emperors are given birth to by the world. Our lives are bestowed to us by the world, but unlike natural spirits, we are born from the various organisms in the world. Sacred feathered tiger emperors are true rulers. We possess the greatest bloodlines in the world, and it's rare for even a single one to appear in 10 million years. We possess potential that has been bestowed on us by the world, directly comparable to the ancestral dragons. We are existences that can become grand exalts. I was the first sacred feathered tiger emperor to be born in the past 8 million years. My home is not here but an extremely distant place. I love my home very much, but I had to leave my beloved home in the end. Back when I had come to this world for the first time, my soul fused with the world and resonated with it during one of my comprehensions. I witnessed the source of the world for the first time, which forecasted that a second sacred feathered tiger emperor would be born here within 1,000,000 years. I left my legacy here to provide assistance to the future clansmen. The sacred feathered tiger emperor is unquestionably the emperor of white tigers. It's rare for them to appear within even 10 million years, yet a second one was going to appear in another 1,000,000 year. It has disproven the past, representing the descent of an unprecedented age of prosperity. The man in white clothes slowly made his way to the white tiger before gently rubbing his head. He continued, "This is a clone that I left behind with a fragment of my soul. It has existed since ancient times, so it cannot last much longer and will disperse soon. You will properly comprehend the way of slaughter here, second sacred feathered tiger emperor. Only when you have truly mastered the basics can you leave. We will meet again." The white tiger looked at the man and produced a deep roar. Determination filled its eyes. This world has already been sealed, preventing anyone from reaching the origin realm. However, it cannot seal natural spirits of the world, nor can it seal the powerful bloodline of sacred feathered tiger emperors, so nothing can obstruct you from reaching the origin realm. Once you become powerful enough, go to the higher world with your companions. You can learn about that place from your friend. Grow well, second sacred feathered tiger emperor. We may possess a powerful bloodline that directly rivals the ancestral dragons, giving us the possibility to become great exalts, but we have been born in a prosperous age. Powerful experts will definitely stand in great numbers in the future, so we must stand hand in hand and kill our way back to our home together. I am about to disperse. Proceed to the throne and accept the legacy." As he uttered the final sentence, the man turned into countless specks of light and dispersed. In the blink of an eye, the 99th floor of the Beast God Hall fell silent. The white tiger stared in the direction the man had stood in a daze. Only after quite a while did he finally turn his eyes to the throne up ahead. He then began to slowly make his way over. As soon as he leaped onto the throne, the entire Beast God Hall violently trembled. At that moment, the terrifying energy hidden within the divine hall began to move about violently. It gathered from all directions, surging toward the mysterious 99th floor. The white tiger's body violently jerked before he closed his eyes and collapsed on the throne. He entered a deep state of cultivation. All the energy that had gathered on the floor poured into the throne. The brutal, terrifying energy, filled with the presence of death, became gentle after it was funneled through the throne. It allowed the white tiger's strength to grow at an unbelievable rate. At the same time, the white tiger's consciousness had drifted off into another world. There, he began to comprehend the way of slaughter left behind by the other winged tiger god. In his soul, the two specks of light, which represented the sources of life and death, flickered. They gradually swelled as the white tiger comprehended the way of slaughter. The movements of the divine hall alerted all the magical beasts cultivating there. The energy within the divine hall wildly churned, forming a terrifying pressure. Even the Class 8 magical beasts found it difficult to endure, and some of the ones still injured from the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints vomited blood. Their wounds deepened. What's happening? Why is there such a terrifying pressure in the Beast God Hall? The energy in the Divine Hall is unstable. Something's happened. Something abnormal has happened to the Divine Hall. Oh no, the pressure is rapidly strengthening. At this rate, we'll be injured by the pressure sooner or later. We need to leave immediately. At that moment, all the powerful magical beasts cultivating in the Beast God Hall revealed drastically different expressions. They flew out of the hall, shocked and confused. They hovered in the sky outside as they stared at the huge Divine Hall. Everyone, please do not panic. The great Beast God has returned and has entered the mysterious 99th floor for its legacy. The abnormality of the Divine Hall is due to his return. An ancient but energetic voice boomed from the sky. Sangxiong, Jianchen, Rum Guinness, and Nubbies had all left the 98th floor as well. They currently hovered outside and looked down on everyone. Chapter 1427, done for the Class 8 magical beasts that had emerged from the Divine Hall all looked up when they heard a voice. When they gazed at Sangxiong, their eyes were filled with respect. This was the respect directed at a Class 9 expert. However, when they heard that the great winged tiger god had entered the 99th floor of the Beast God Hall to accept his legacy, their emotions leaked onto their faces. The winged tiger god was the god of the magical beasts. He had left behind a permanent influence in ancient times. However, this influence had weakened with the passage of time, which was why very few magical beasts still treated the winged tiger god as a god. Two of their rulers had even become interested in replacing the winged tiger god. However, the world currently faced the threat of the world of Forsaken Saints. They had all personally witnessed the power of the foreign world. The foreign world was impossible to stop without Origin Realm experts. The war god of the 100 races had already returned, the humans had Jianchen, and the sea realm had the sea goddess. 3 of the 4 great races in this world possessed Origin Realm experts. Only the magical beasts were lacking an expert. The magical beasts, which were originally stronger than the 100 races and humans, became the weakest race in a single stroke. As a result, all the magical beasts were extraordinarily moved by the return of the winged tiger god in their time of need. A part of them did not become emotional because the winged tiger god was the ancient beast god, but because its existence allowed them to maintain their former position among the 4 races. Very few people still worship the winged tiger god as a god. Sangxiong's voice rang out once more. Today, I will be announcing a significant matter. 2 of the 3 rulers of our beast god continent, Kaiser and the Tiger Emperor, have attempted to harm the great beast god in the past and have now fled because of their crimes. They have left the Beast God Hall. From today on, they are no longer a part of us. I declare that the Tiger Emperor Lankiros and Kaiser are now wanted people. Once their tracks have been found, you must report them. What Sangxiong said immediately caused quite a large commotion. The Beast God continent had been split into 3 territories. Kaiser, the Tiger Emperor, and Sangxiong all governed one of the territories, as they were the most powerful existences on the continent. Yet now, Sangxiong had actually issued a warrant for the arrest of the 2 other rulers, which immediately shocked everyone. However, no one dared to voice any objections. Right now, the disappearance of the 2 rulers had already explained some matters. At the same time, the winged tiger god had already begun to accept its legacy. They all understood that their loyalty no longer lay with the 3 rulers from before but with the great beast god. As a result, even the Class 8 magical beasts that had belonged to the Tiger Emperor and Kaiser remained silent due to this special situation. Sangxiong looked at Jianchen and the seriousness on his face disappeared. He said to Jianchen with a smile, "Sovereign Jianchen, I am unsure when the winged tiger god will finish accepting its legacy. Why don't you stay at the Beast God Hall over the next few days? I'll be able to perform my duties as a host that way." Jianchen silently pondered the offer before rejecting Sangxiong's urgings to stay. He too had no idea when the white tiger would finish accepting its legacy. It was fine if it was only a few days, but he could not afford to wait if it took several years or even longer. He had a lot of matters to attend to. The white tiger was safe on the 99th floor. Jian-shen returned to the Beast God Hall under Tsangxiong's lead. He went through the floors where Kaiser and Lankiros stayed and found their treasuries. He took away everything that caught his eye. Jian-shen found a large number of high-class monster cores in the two treasuries as well as a few ruler armaments and king armaments that they had collected. Jian-shen even found a complete Saint-Tier battle skill tablet and 3 emperor armaments. The Saint-Tier battle skill and emperor's armaments all possessed a heavy, ancient presence. They were items from several tens of thousand years ago. The items were great treasures to humans, but they were of no great use to the magical beasts aside from keeping them in a collection. However, Jian-shen failed to find anything that could catch his attention in the treasuries of the two Saint Emperors, to his disappointment. Jian-shen and Nubis left the Beast God Hall together. However, Rum Guinness stayed behind. She insisted on waiting for her child to return. Jian-shen rode the Ziying sword as he flew alongside Nubis at a slower speed. A gleam of cold light flickered in his eyes. He would stop and sweep the surroundings with his senses after flying a certain distance every time, as if he was looking for something. "What are you looking for?" Nubis asked out of interest. Back in the Sea Realm, one of the people who killed the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan managed to escape. "He's called Li Fengxing and he belongs to the Beast God Continent," said Jian-shen. He had come to the Beast God Continent this time with 2 intentions in mind. One of them was to get the White Tiger to enter the Beast God Hall for its legacy, while the other was to look for Li Fengxing, who had managed to flee in the past. Jian-shen had never forgotten who had contributed to the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan's death. He had been forbidden from setting foot on the Beast God Continent in the past. Only now did he possess the strength that allowed him to step onto this foreign land without worrying about the 3 Saint Emperors. Jian-shen's senses could envelop an area of over 200,000 kilometers in a single instance, and that was not his limit. Even a single ant 100,000 kilometers away from him could not escape his senses. They could even reach deep into the ground, allowing him to find anything hidden deep below. The Beast God Continent was vast, but it was not difficult for Jian-shen to find a person if he had made up his mind. All he needed was some time and energy. In the blink of an eye, Jian-shen had searched the Beast God Continent for 3 days. In that time, he had basically looked over every inch of half the continent. Although he had not found any traces of Li Fengxing, he was not flustered at all. "In a few more days, I'll have searched every inch of this continent. As long as Li Fengxing is still here, he won't be able to escape my search. If he isn't, then I'll go to the Tianyuan continent and then the land inhabited by the 100 races. If I still can't find him, I'll search the entire world after my soul reaches the level of the origin realm," Jian-shen thought. He would never let Li Fengxing off the hook, unlike what he did with Kaiser and the Tiger Emperor. In the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints, the two of them had put in the effort even if it did not amount to much at all. As a result, he had settled his enmity with the two of them then and there. Jian-shen was not the only one who had wanted to kill the two of them after all. Even with Jian-shen out of the picture, they were still the White Tiger's enemies. Jian-shen's and Nubi's senses scoured the land. They arrived in a new region and Jian-shen's powerful senses swept out in an unstoppable fashion, enveloping over 200,000 kilometers. Jian-shen suddenly opened his eyes a few seconds later. A bright gleam of light immediately flashed through his eyes, and he shot off as a stream of light on the Ziying sword. Nubis followed close behind him. In an ancient forest rich with the energy of the world, a simple, wooden hut stood by itself on a huge, gray rock. It creaked in the gentle breeze, like an old man at death's door. It seemed to have almost collapsed in the wind. It was extremely shabby inside. There were no furniture, like in any other house. The hut was empty. There was nothing aside from a middle-aged, burly man who was seated in there. The man's eyes were closed as a tremendous presence leaked from his body. He was clearly cultivating. The extremely lively energy around his body began to calm down, and he gradually opened his eyes. The Beast God continent has suffered heavy losses from the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints. Many experts have died and the Beast God Hall has emptied out. It's said that cultivating is much easier within the Beast God Hall. It might have been difficult for me to take up a position in the Beast God Hall before, but it's different now, the middle-aged man murmured to himself. His eyes shone with eagerness and desire. However, the man seemed to think of something soon after. His face became extremely ugly in the blink of an eye, and he tightly clenched his fists. Deep fear seemed to appear in his eyes as he growled, "I may not have taken part in the battle against the foreign world, but I've heard from many people that a sovereign who surpassed Saint Emperor has appeared for the humans on the Tianyuan continent. I've fallen out with him back in the Sea Realm, so if he finds me, I'm done for." It's said that the human sovereign has close ties with the Winged Tiger God. If he accompanies the Winged Tiger God to the Beast God Hall, it'll be impossible for me to avoid him. With that being the case, I still can't go to the Beast God Hall. Whatever. Cultivating in the Beast God Hall really is attractive, but it's not as important as my life. I can't go to the Beast God Hall. It's better for me to cultivate here in peace. That human sovereign's busy with the matters of the foreign world, so he definitely won't have time for me. Plus, here's distant enough from here if he visits the Beast God Hall. Li Fengxing released his fist powerlessly. The eagerness he had displayed earlier had vanished from his eyes as well. As soon as he thought about how he had fallen out with the human sovereign, he felt like the end of the world had come, making him shiver inside. Li Fengxing, did you think I wouldn't find you just by fleeing to the Beast God continent? You're done for today. At this moment, a great voice boomed from outside. It caused mountains to collapse and pulverized trees. Li Fengxing's rickety old hut collapsed the tremendous sound waves. Chapter 1428, Visiting the Arctic again. The tremendous voice exploded in Li Fengxing's ears like a bolt of lightning. Not only was he deafened, but even his soul shook uncontrollably. The wooden hut had collapsed, burying Li Fengxing in its ruins. However, Li Fengxing remained seated like nothing had happened. He had become temporarily stunned. However, his dazed gaze began to shine once again. He immediately became shocked and terrified. He had not heard that voice a lot before, but it was one he would never forget, because he had thought about what the owner of the voice had said back in the Sea Realm several times over the last couple of days. The owner of the voice had now become the human sovereign. Li Fengxing shuddered and immediately paled. At that moment, his entire soul was overwhelmed by tremendous fear. Without any hesitation, he immediately burst out of the ruins and took to the sky. He wanted to devote himself to fleeing. However, as soon as he took to the sky, a stream of violet light suddenly appeared on the horizon, approaching him at an unbelievable rate. This streak of violet light was still near the horizon for one moment, but in the next, it had already arrived before him. Immediately, a pressure so powerful that it was indescribable swept forth, crushing down on Li Fengxing like a mountain. His chest became tight as breathing became difficult. Jian Shen stood before Li Fengxing on the Ziying sword with his arms crossed. He stared at Li Fengxing coldly as heavy killing intent radiated from him. He didn't expend any effort to conceal it. Li Fengxing immediately began to violently tremble the moment he saw Jian Shen. He was utterly frightened and became overwhelmed by fear. Sovereign Jian Shen, you're the great human expert, so why do you still hang on to your past matters with someone insignificant like me? Li Fengxing inquired with a trembling voice. At the same time, he was filled with resentment. He had originally thought that he would be fine hiding away, thinking Jian Shen would forget someone as insignificant as him long ago with his great status as the sovereign of the humans. Never did he think that Jian Shen still remembered him even after attaining such a great status, and what he found unbelievable was that Jian Shen actually came to the Beast God continent in search of him. The Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan was slain by you. No matter who it is, whoever has taken part in the attack against the Grand Elder, I will never let them go, even if they flee to the ends of the earth. Li Fengxing, you should have made up your mind about what is going to happen today the moment you killed the Grand Elder. Jianchen coldly informed him. No, Sovereign Jianchen, you can't blame me. I was only acting under orders, Li Fengxing hurriedly replied. He felt like he was facing a death god as he stood before Jianchen right now. He had completely given up the thought of fleeing before Jianchen, because he knew any attempt was useless. It was impossible for him to avoid being hunted down by an Origin Realm sovereign. Jianchen had already made up his mind. Of the people who had contributed to the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan's death, he had killed everyone except for Li Fengxing. A powerful strand of sword chi flashed with white light and Li Fengxing was beheaded by Jianchen. The pure sword chi entered Li Fengxing's head through the wound and wiped out his soul. A Class 8 magical beast, equivalent to a Saint King, was easily slain. Only now did Nubis arrive as a golden streak of light. He silently stared at Li Fengxing's head as it fell from the sky. He seemed to remember the story Jianchen had told him when the Grand Elder and him were attacked by Li Fengxing and the others. If it were not for the Grand Elder laying down his life, Jianchen probably would have died right there. To the Sea Realm, Jianchen said emotionlessly as he lifted up Li Fengxing's head. Nubis nodded silently and immediately ripped open a space gate leading to the Sea Realm. The two of them departed through it. As soon as Jianchen and Nubis approached the protective barrier around the Sea Realm, an entrance ripped open. They immediately headed to the Turtle Clan. In the forbidden grounds of the Turtle Clan, Jianchen and Nubis did not alert anyone. They silently arrived with Li Fengxing's head. Jianchen offered the magical beast's head to the Grand Elder's spirit in heaven. Jianchen remained before the Grand Elder's grave for 3 days. The two of them left silently after that. The Great Turtle Clan was now filled with experts. They possessed several Saint Kings, but no one had discovered Jianchen and Nubis' arrival. Jianchen and Nubis hovered 1,000 meters above the calm sea as they gazed into the distance. Jianchen said, "Nubis, I need to go to the Ice Goddess Hall in the Arctic. There is an extremely powerful and mysterious expert there. Before her, even I do not have control over my own life, so there's no need for you to come with me this time." Nubis was shocked inside and became stern. He said with a heavy voice, "There's some rough records regarding the Arctic Ice Goddess Hall in my inherited memories. It said that they're a mysteries organization that has already existed for countless years. Even the 10 protector clans do not want to offend them. I never thought that there would be an Origin Realm expert hidden there." Nubis looked at Jianchen and said, "Jianchen, I probably won't be able to help you with this trip. I'll wait for you on the Tianyuan continent." Jianchen and Nubis separated. One of them headed to the Tianyuan continent while the other one made his way to the icy tundra in the north. When Jianchen's feet landed on the Arctic tundra once more, he could not help but sigh emotionally. This was the second time he had set foot on the tundra. He had been with Roy Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yus the first time, but he was all by himself now. However, the dangers of the tundra had drastically weakened even though he was by himself. It was even possible to say that nothing could threaten him aside from the layer of mist around the Ice Goddess Hall. Seniors Roy Jin, He Yu, and Hong Lian originally fell victim because of me and were frozen into statues. I will save the 3 of them no matter what today and let the 3 of them become Saint Emperors. It's also been far longer than a year since I promised my sister. It's just that I have been too busy and couldn't make time, which is why I didn't go when the promised time came. I wonder if she's mad." Jianchen did not fly on his sword. He instead made his way into the depths of the Arctic region on foot. Although he was moving on foot, he moved extremely quickly. He would leave behind a faint afterimage with every step as he appeared several kilometers away. It seemed like he was teleporting. Jianchen encountered waves of iciness several times along the way. The streams of coldness could freeze a Saint King into a statue in a single moment, but now, Jianchen could disperse them by extending a finger and shooting out a strand of sword chi. Very soon, Jianchen saw the statues of the Saint Emperors and Class 9 magical beasts that had been left behind long ago. He could clearly see a few piles of icy slush near the statues. These piles were the result of Jian Chen's attempts to free the statues of the frozen Saint Emperors when he had first come across them. This time, Jian Chen only glanced over the statues indifferently. He did not stop as he continued on, disappearing in a few flashes. A faint layer of white light flickered around him as he radiated with sword qi. He protected himself with the way of the sword. The icy streams of air would shatter as soon as they came into contact with the layer of light. The deeper he ventured into the tundra, the colder it became. Even Jian Chen needed to take some measures to protect himself now. After advancing a few thousand kilometers, Jian Chen finally saw the white mist that seemed to connect the sky with the ground. The white mist was completely formed from the terrifying presence of profound ice. It was extremely powerful. Even Hong Lian could not venture far into it with her full strength back then. She had almost been frozen into a statue. Chapter 1429, 10,000-Year-Old Ice Souls, 1. Within the snow-white, sculpture-like ice goddess hall, the armored protector Shui sat on her bed of ice like a statue. She gradually opened her eyes before hesitating slightly. With a gentle wave of her hand, the space outside the ice goddess hall immediately began to distort. The ice goddess hall rapidly blurred in the distorted space, vanishing in the blink of an eye. The icy tundra remained the same as before, except the ice goddess hall that had stood there for countless years had vanished. I've already moved the ice goddess hall into a separate space, isolating it from the outside world. I hope Jian Chen's arrival will not disturb Her Majesty, Protector Shui murmured to herself in the ice goddess hall. A sliver of helplessness was present in her icy cold and emotionless eyes. I may not be able to make things difficult for Jian Chen because of Mo Tianyun, but I can stop Her Majesty from seeing Jian Chen since Her Majesty insists on giving a 10,000-year-old ice soul to him and I cannot change her mind. At the same time, Changyang Mingyue, who was in another room of the Divine Hall, suddenly roused from her cultivation. A sliver of doubt flickered through her eyes as she mumbled, "Weird. Why do I suddenly feel uneasy?" Changyang Mingyue pondered with a frown for a while and lost interest in cultivation. She stood up and made her way out of her room, headed to Protector Shui's side. She asked, "Protector Shui, it's been several years already, so why has my brother still not come? Has my brother come across some problems?" Protector Shui gradually opened her eyes and rather politely said, "Your Majesty, your brother is completely fine. He is currently busying himself with the matter of fending off the world of forsaken saints, which is why he has not come." Protector Shui was worried that Changyang Mingyue would think of going to the Tianyuan continent to help out Jian Chen again, so she added, "Your brother now has the power to face off against Origin Realm fighters. The foreign invasion is not enough to threaten him." In order to make Changyang Mingyue believe what she said, Protector Shui waved her hand and used an ability to condense a mirror of ice before her. It displayed the scene when Jian Chen had massacred the Saint Emperors from the foreign world with the Ziying sword. Changyang Mingyue could not help but smile happily when she saw how her brother was rampaging through the Saint Emperors in an unstoppable manner. She mumbled, "I never thought my brother was so strong. Your Majesty, there's still one more year before your profound ice body matures. At that time, you can leave the ice goddess hall and go where you want to go," said Protector Shui. Anticipation appeared in Changyang Mingyue's eyes. She mumbled, "There's still one more year. In a year's time, I can go to the Tianyuan continent to look for brother." "Father, Mother, it's been so long since I've spent time with you. I wonder if you're still fine. Over the next year, I must work hard on cultivation and let the profound ice body reach perfection as soon as possible. I'll go cultivate right now." Protector Shui watched Changyang Mingyue leave. The light in her eyes flickered uneasily as she thought, "There's still one more year before Her Majesty's profound ice body reaches perfection. At that time, I'll embed all 3 ice souls into Her Majesty. That way, she cannot give them away. Jian Chen, I hope you do not disturb Her Majesty within the next year. Sigh, it's just a pity that I agreed to Mo Tianyun that I would not make things difficult for Jian Chen." Jian Chen did not recklessly charge into the screen of mist. He had personally witnessed how terrifying it was before. Even with his strength now and the azulate swords, he was not confident he could get through the mist. Jian Chen frowned. He had waited before the mist for a while and no changes had happened. He thought, last time I visited sister, she said that this entire tundra is under Protector Shui's control. As soon as I set foot here, Protector Shui will know about my arrival and send me over. Not only have I set foot in this tundra right, but I'm just a single layer of mist away from the Ice Goddess Hall. It's impossible for Protector Shui to have not sensed me. Jian Chen's gaze gradually grew colder as he stared at the mist that blocked his way. He thought, this can only be explained by the fact that Protector Shui does not want me in and does not want me to see my sister. I've already arrived here today, so how can I leave so easily? Suddenly, Jian Chen's presence changed. He began to radiate a surging sword intent. At that moment, he seemed to have turned into a sword instead of an ordinary human. The terrifying sword intent seemed to shatter space and make the coldness around him collapse. Only the dense layer of mist before him remained unaffected. Jian Chen was enveloped by a bright white light, completely obscuring his body. When the white light came into contact with the tough sheet of ice beneath him, the ice crisply cracked. Two dazzling lights, one violet and one azure, appeared in the white light. They surged into the sky as they transformed into the silhouettes of swords. Jian Chen's eyes shone brighter. He formed a seal with his hands and the azulate swords on his back immediately shot out in a flash. The two of them began to spin like a whirlpool as they shot into the icy mist in front of him with a dazzling light. Jian Chen did not hold back at all with that attack. He erupted with the power of the Origin Realm. Wherever the swords passed by, the space violently trembled, showing signs of shattering. Invisible sword chi filled the surroundings, creating huge cracks in the tough ice on the ground. The icy tundra was the domain of Protector Shui, so the space was countless times tougher than the outside world. Jian Chen's strike was enough to obliterate a world and split the Tian Yuan continent into two. However, it did not even manage to cleave through the air in the icy tundra. The azulate swords shot into the icy mist as streaks of light. The mist immediately began to churn. When the mist came in contact with the sword chi from the azulate swords, it immediately emitted a hissing sound. The azulate swords shot several dozen meters into the mist in a single moment, leaving behind an open space behind them. However, the mist became more terrifying the deeper they went. After traveling 300 meters in, the light from the two swords were immediately suppressed and they lost their bright color. After traveling 360 meters in, the light on the swords was completely suppressed, pushing it back into the swords themselves. A thin layer of ice crystals rapidly formed on the swords. Chapter 1430, 10,000-Year Ice Souls, 2. After traveling another 15 meters, the terrifying coldness from the mist immediately increased by several fold. Even the swords, low-quality immortal artifacts, were unable to withstand it. The ice began to rapidly thicken on the swords, instantly turning them into two poles. Their light was completely suppressed and the swords themselves were no longer visible. This was no ordinary ice. It was terrifyingly tough, able to suppress the azulate swords, prevent them from gaining an advantage. Jian Chen stood sternly outside the mist. He could sense that his connection to the two swords was rapidly weakening. Without any hesitation, he immediately changed his hand's seal and recalled the swords. When the two swords emerged from the mist, the ice on them had already reached a thickness of half a meter. The swords had lost the speed they had once possessed, so they slowly flew out. After leaving the mist, the tunnel carved by the swords slowly began to close up, filled up by the mist in the surroundings. Jian Chen stared at the thick popsicles, and powerful sword chi began to condense from the surroundings. It condensed around his right hand in a single moment, making it shine with an extremely dazzling light. He then slammed his hand toward the two swords. The attack only managed to cause a tiny crack to form on the thick ice. The moment his hand came in contact with the ice, a terrifying coldness invaded his body through his palm, rapidly extending up his arm. Jian Chen's arm immediately became covered with a layer of white frost. Not only had his entire arm been frozen, but even his blood had stopped flowing. A gleam of light flashed through Jian Chen's eyes as a large quantity of chaotic force immediately surged to his right arm from his chaotic Niden. Only after he did that did he manage to stop the spread of the coldness. He circulated the chaotic force in his right arm and ate away the terrifying coldness that remained within him, gradually regaining use of his arm. I never thought that this coldness would be so terrifying, Jian Chen thought. This was just a single strand of coldness from the azulate swords. If he had entered the layer of mist before him, he would have received the direct attacks of the coldness. He probably would not have been able to last for a few seconds before being frozen into a statue. Jian Chen did not attempt to smash through the thick ice again as he stared at the two frozen swords. Around half a minute later, the ice on the two swords became covered with dense cracks. After a series of cracking sounds, the cracks spread across the ice like a web as azure and violet light poured out from them. Bang! Finally, the ice loudly exploded and revealed the two dazzling swords inside. Without the support of the coldness from the mist, the ice was unable to keep the two swords trapped. Protector Shui's intentions are very obvious. How do I get in if I can't get through this mist? Jian Chen deeply frowned. He knew that he could do nothing about the layer of mist before him with his current strength. Not even reciprocity experts would have been able to make it through the mist. Changyang Mingyue returned to her room to cultivate in the Ice Goddess Hall, but she was unable to settle down no matter what. She sat on a bone-piercingly cold piece of ice as she rubbed her chin with one hand. Suspicion filled her eyes as she mumbled, "Odd. Why do I suddenly feel so uneasy? I can't settle down no matter what." Changyang Mingyue silently wondered to herself silently after pondering her thoughts for some time. Something must have happened, and it's connected to me. I just happened to have learned the profound ice mirror technique from Protector Shui a few days ago, which allows me to see anything anywhere. I may be restricted by my strength and my mastery over the technique, preventing me from seeing the entire Tianyuan continent like Protector Shui, but I should be able to see anything I want within a radius of 10,000 kilometers. Changyang Mingyue immediately used the secret technique. Like Protector Shui, she condensed a mirror from profound ice in the air. The mirror was snow-white before some blurry scenes flashed through it. This was the first time Changyang Mingyue had used this secret technique, so she was not very good at controlling it yet. It took her several seconds before the mirror finally cleared up. Displayed was a world of snow and ice. It was the tundra in the Arctic. She could clearly see a corner of the entire Arctic. It was only a corner, but it was an expanse of almost 10,000 kilometers. Although the Ice Goddess Hall had been hidden away by Protector Shui, having disappeared from the tundra and seemingly entered another space, it was not enough to stop the technique from working. The profound ice mirror technique was extremely wondrous. Not only could the user of the technique gain a clear view of everything within 10,000 kilometers, but they could clearly sense all the presences in the area as well. Basically, the moment the technique worked, Changyang Mingyue sensed an extremely familiar presence. She immediately gathered her attention to look at it and became dazed. Surprise and joy filled her face as she uncontrollably exclaimed, "Brother, brother! I see my brother, Protector Shui, you've..." The next moment, Changyang Mingyue discovered that Jian Chen had been stopped by the layer of mist. Her snow-white face immediately became furious, and with a single flash, she vanished. She angrily ran to where Protector Shui stayed. At the same time, Protector Shui gently sighed on her bed. The same moment she sighed, the terrifying wall of mist in front of Jian Chen began to violently surge. Under Jian Chen's interested gaze, the mist quickly parted open, and in the blink of an eye, a 3-meter-wide tunnel leading inside formed silently. "Come on in," Protector Shui's cold voice rang in Jian Chen's head. He fell silent, before entering with the azulate swords on his back. As Jian Chen passed through the mist, Protector Shui returned the Ice Goddess Hall to where it was before. The exquisite, crystal-like divine hall stood there as if it had fused with the world. It gave off an ancient and desolate sense of grandeur. Jian Chen glanced over and his eyes immediately narrowed. He failed to find Roy Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu where they had been frozen before. He looked around and did not find any traces of the three of them at all. Have they been moved to some other place by Protector Shui? Jian Chen thought. He had come to visit his sister as well as to save the three of them this time. Brother. At this moment, a joyous voice rang out from the distance. Changyang Mingyue stood at the entrance of the Divine Hall as she gazed at Jian Chen. Her face was filled with joy and deep concern. Chapter 1431, 10,000-Year Ice Souls, 3, Sister. Jian Chen beamed with delight when he saw Changyang Mingyue. He temporarily put the matter of Roy Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu aside and immediately walked over. Brother, you've finally come. I've waited for you for so many years already. It's been way more than the single year we agreed on before. Changyang Mingyue brightly smiled at Jian Chen as she stood at the entrance of the Divine Hall. She had spoken like she chastising Jian Chen, but she had no intentions of angering him at all. Jian Chen smiled apologetically. He had always been busy with the revival of the sea goddess during that time. He had gone into the Sea of Despair with Yadrium in search of the Sea Goddess Supreme Divine Hall, and just that had taken a very long time. When the two of them had returned with the Divine Hall, the agreed time had passed long ago. Afterward, he had to handle the Sea Goddess Resurrection Ceremony and stop the two other Hall Elders. Returning to the Tianyuan continent after that, he needed to handle the invasion of the foreign world, so he was just busy, forcing him to temporarily put off the promise, all the way until today. Jian Chen gave Changyang Mingyue a simple explanation and Changyang Mingyue immediately smiled. Brother, you don't need to explain things to me. I'm not blaming you. Changyang Mingyue gently sighed as she reached there. It's just a pity that I haven't been able to leave the Ice Goddess Hall in all these years, making you suffer so much all by yourself. Otherwise, I would have helped you no matter what and taught all those enemies that have made things difficult for you a lesson. Jian Chen smiled from the bottom of his heart when he heard her words. He said, Sister, I now possess that strength. All my past enemies are no longer my opponent, even if they are Saint Emperors. Yeah, you become so impressive now. You conducted a slaughter against the Saint Emperors of the foreign world, none of them were your opponent. You killed at least 200 of them. I learned all this from Protector Shui. Sigh, and I had thought that I was very powerful now, but I've only just discovered that I'm still not as great as you. Changyang Mingyue smiled. She did not become depressed at all and became happy for Jian Chen instead. She felt proud of her brother's strength. Brother, why don't you quickly tell me about the interesting things you've come across over the past few years? I'm extremely curious as to how your strength has increased so quickly, Changyang Mingyue asked out of interest. Jian Chen gently smiled and soon gave a brief overview of everything that had happened to him over the past few years. However, he described many events in a single sentence and did not go into detail, including the matter regarding the Xianhuang microcosm. It was not because he did not trust Changyang Mingyue, but he was worried about revealing something to Protector Shui, who had an unfathomable strength. Jian Chen did not know how strong Protector Shui was even now, whether she was of the origin realm or at godhood. He believed that even his communication techniques would not be able to hide what he said from her ears. Sister, seniors Roy Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu who came with me a few years ago were sealed up here by Protector Shui. I am completely in debt to the three of them. It's even possible to say that I would not still be alive if it wasn't for the three of them. Please help me persuade Protector Shui to release the three seniors, said Jian Chen. He knew that he could only rely on his sister to save the three of them with his current strength. What? Something like that happened? This Protector Shui is going more and more overboard, even laying her hands on your saviors. Let's go. I'll take you to see Protector Shui right now. Changyang Mingyue was furious. She really cared about her brother. To her, his saviors were her saviors as well. Protector Shui's treatment of the three of them had angered her once again. Changyang Mingyue immediately brought Jian Chen into the Ice Goddess Hall. As soon as he stepped into the divine hall, a bone-piercing chill appeared and caused Jian Chen to shiver uncontrollably. He immediately began to circulate the energy within him to resist it. This was the first time Jian Chen had entered the extremely mysterious Ice Goddess Hall, so he could not help but look around. He discovered that the interior of the divine hall was snow-white, completely constructed from ice crystals. It seemed just like a world of ice. Besides that, the mysterious divine hall was not really eye-catching. However, Jian Chen understood that behind the divine hall's ordinary appearance was something terrifying that he could not sense. He knew that it was not because the divine hall was ordinary, but it was because he was not strong enough and unable to see through it. Along the way, Jian Chen discovered a few other people cultivating within the divine hall. There were many saint rulers and saint kings and even quite a few heaven saint masters. They all worked as servants. All the people that Changyang Mingyue came across bowed politely toward her. They were extremely courteous. These people should all be from the Tianyuan continent. Jian Chen glanced at them casually and discovered that they were all human. Very soon, Jian Chen was brought before Protector Shui with Changyang Mingyue's guidance. Protector Shui remained seated on her bed in her silver-white armor the same as before, and she only stood up to bow to Changyang Mingyue the moment she saw her. However, before changing Mingyue could ask about anything, she said to Jian Chen, "The three of them were saved soon after you left. They are no longer on this tundra." Jian Chen became stunned and was overwhelmed by disbelief. Was there still anyone who could save the three of them with Protector Shui's strength? "Senior, who saved them?" Jian Chen asked with clasped hands. "Mo Tianyun," Protector Shui responded coldly. "What? Senior Mo Tianyun did? Is Senior Mo Tianyun still on the continent?" Jian Chen was shocked as his heart churned. This matter was just far too astounding. It was only a clone of Mo Tianyun. He probably just sent it down from a higher world. I can't sense the presence of that clone any longer now. It must have dispersed. After all, it's not that easy to come to this world, Protector Shui replied. Jian Chen looked at Protector Shui in surprise. He felt that she was rather different today. According to his understanding of her, she would never have wasted words on others with her pride, yet she had become patient enough today to explain things to him. Today was quite an abnormality. "Protector Shui, are you looking down on me? Since the three seniors were my brother's saviors, they're my saviors as well. You actually trapped my saviors here. You really are going more and more overboard." Changyang Mingyue stared at Protector Shui coldly. Protector Shui was powerful, but she was not afraid of her. This one understands. This one trapped them only because they possessed saint artifacts that did not belong to this world, Protector Shui politely responded. "Let's just leave the matter at this since the seniors have already been freed, sister," Jian Chen quickly added, seeing how Changyang Mingyue was still furious. Protector Shui was a powerful expert after all. She possessed her own pride, so he did not wish for his sister to press her too much and end up with some unexpected outcomes. Changyang Mingyue snorted coldly, "Since my brothers put it like that, I won't dwell on this matter anymore. However, I don't wish to see something like this happen again, Protector Shui." "This one understands," Protector Shui remained very polite. She did not feel displeased at all even while being scolded by Changyang Mingyue, who had not even reached Origin Realm, despite being a god king. It was as if this was supposed to happen. This was because Changyang Mingyue was the reincarnation of the snow goddess. Similar to the ice goddess, she was her master. Changyang Mingyue and Jian Chen left. The two of them strolled through the divine hall casually as they talked about their daily lives. "There's still one more year before my profound ice body matures. At that time, I'll be able to leave this place, so don't worry, brother. The next time the world of Forsaken Saints invades, I'll fight alongside you. Don't underestimate me, alright? I may not be as strong as you right now, I'm only a Saint Emperor, but once my profound ice body matures, I'll immediately reach the Origin Realm. Coupled with the 10,000-year-old ice souls, I'll only become even more powerful. Even you might not end up being my opponent, Changyang Mingyue giggled. Afterward, she immediately pulled out a fist-sized piece of ice crystal with a flip of her hand. Brother, this is a 10,000-year-old ice soul. I have 3 of these. Protector Shui said that each one of them can only be condensed after 1,000,000 years, so it's extremely precious. I'll give you one as a gift from me. Changyang Mingyue passed the ice soul to Jian Chen. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. He stared at the 10,000-year-old ice soul as shock gradually appeared. He could sense that the energy within the ice soul was even more terrifying than a 5th-grade violet cloud peaches. It possessed several times the energy, possibly even several dozen times the energy in a peach. At the same time, the energy within the ice soul was very gentle, just like the peaches. It could easily be absorbed. Sister, this is for you to increase your strength. I can't accept it. Jian Chen immediately declined the gift. He knew that the 10,000-year-old ice soul was even more precious than the 5th-grade violet cloud peaches, which was exactly why he could not accept it. The 3 10,000-year-old ice souls were the most precious items on his sister. They were to increase her own strength, and every one that she lost would reduce her strength in the future. On the other hand, he possessed quite a few heavenly resources similar to the ice soul. They may not be as precious, but he had many more of them. Changyang Mingyue frowned and her face immediately darkened. She was displeased and said, as if she was scolding a junior, Brother, this is a gift from your sister. You have to accept it whether you want to or not, or you'll be looking down on your sister. Sister, this, Jian Chen was troubled. He wished that she would use all 3 ice souls and would become even more powerful. Take it. You have to accept my gifts. I'll stay by your side until you fully absorb it. You're not allowed to take it out, Changyang Mingyue said without giving him any room to reject her gift. She did not let him take the ice soul away because she was afraid that Protector Shui would steal it back. Chapter 1432, The 5th Layer of the Chaotic Body, 1. Finally, Jian Chen ran out of options. He could only accept the extremely precious 10,000-year-old ice soul. The extreme coldness within the ice soul had been removed, but it was unable to change its base properties. As a result, it still felt like ice to Jian Chen when he held it in his hand. However, he did not feel cold at all. Instead, he felt warm inside. He understood just how important the ice soul was to Changyang Mingyue. If it was used by her, the increase in strength she would gain would definitely be greater than if it was used on himself. After all, he practiced the chaotic body. The energy required to progress through each layer was incalculably large. However, Changyang Mingyue did not think about herself at all. She was willing to progress a little slower just to help him, which touched Jian Chen. Brother, come. I'll find a room for you and then I will personally watch over you so that you can absorb the entire ice soul. Changyang Mingyue pulled Jian Chen toward a room meant for cultivation. Jian Chen did not resist. He knew just how determined his sister was and that it would be useless no matter how he resisted. All he could do was burn her kindness deeply into his heart and never forget about it. Jian Chen entered a cavern of ice under Changyang Mingyue's lead. Coldness filled the room. It was abundant like the energy of the world. A piece of cushion-like, pure white ice sat in the center of the room and gave off waves of coldness. Brother, Protector Shui has said that this piece of profound ice is extraordinary. It will bring you benefits if you cultivate on it. You can emerge after you completely absorb the ice soul, Changyang Mingyue said as she pointed at the piece of ice. After that, she closed the door to the room with a wave of her hand, leaving Jian Chen in there all by himself. She sat down outside to personally keep guard for Jian Chen. Protector Shui, you can't change matters that I've decided on. I know you're thinking about me and that you want me to become even stronger, but it's been tough on my brother in the years he spent outside. He may no longer be weaker than me now, but I know that he has risked his life to obtain his current powers. When he was suffering outside and being chased around the world by others, I did nothing as a sister. I was unable to help him, but I have the power now. I have to help him this time no matter what. This is my responsibility as a sister, Changyang Mingyue uttered inside as she sat outside the room with her eyes closed. Protector Shui, you won't be able to take the ice soul from my brother with me here. Even if the day that my profound ice body has to be delayed indefinitely, I will stay here until my brother emerges. The room filled with coldness was hazy. Jianshen sat on the ice as he held the ice soul in his hand. He stared at the ice soul with mixed emotions. He was unable to settle down for the moment. At this moment, a cool feeling radiated from the ice below. It entered Jianshen's body and moved about. The cool feeling clearly was not as simple as a strand of coldness. Its appearance gradually ate away all of Jianshen's mixed emotions and allowed him to brush aside his random thoughts. Sister. Jianshen muttered inside before gathering his concentration. He began to cultivate with all his attention, absorbing the energy within the ice soul. Although the tremendous energy within the ice soul had been condensed from extreme coldness, the formation of each ice soul took 1,000,000 years. After such a long time, the energy within the ice soul had changed long ago. Not only was the coldness removed, making the energy in it gentle, but it was also extremely pure and powerful. When the first strand of energy was absorbed by Jianshen's body, the thin strand immediately began to rapidly expand like a balloon, becoming 100 times its size and completely filling Jianshen's dantian. In the end, his dantian was unable to contain all of the energy, leading to some leaking out into his body, making it swell. Jianshen was delighted inside. He had estimated the value of the ice soul before, but to his surprise, the ice soul had far exceeded any of his estimations. I wonder if I can reach the 5th layer of the chaotic body with just this ice soul. Jianshen became hasty as he immediately began to refine the energy in the ice soul. As the energy of the ice soul was endlessly absorbed by Jianshen, the chaotic Niden in his dantian gradually grew larger. More and more chaotic force accumulated within it as he rapidly approached the 5th layer of the chaotic body. Jianshen would have definitely consumed a lot of time to reach the 5th layer of the chaotic body if it was not for the ice soul. After all, the energy required to reach the 5th layer was just far too tremendous, far more than what he had needed to reach the 4th layer. Although he had a large amount of immortal tier heavenly resources he had obtained from the Xianhuang microcosm, he would develop an immunity to their effects if he consumed too many of them in a short time frame. The effects of the heavenly resources would be heavily reduced, so Jianshen was unable to devour the heavenly resources to reach the 5th layer. After all, he did not have the white tiger's natural advantage, which enabled it to consume heavenly resources endlessly. The appearance of the ice soul, without a single doubt, was giving Jianshen exactly what he needed when he needed it. The time he required to reach the 5th layer would be greatly reduced. Jianshen absorbed the ice soul extremely quickly. The fist-sized ice soul had vanished in just 2 months, having all been refined into chaotic force. Unfortunately, Jianshen still had not reached the 5th layer after absorbing the ice soul with his chaotic body. He was only an inch away from the 5th layer. The chaotic Niden in his dantian had become the size of a fist. He had reached the peak of the 4th layer, the limit of what he could achieve right now. If he could take one step further, he would immediately reach the 5th layer. Jianshen fell silent as he observed his chaotic Niden within him. He then clenched his teeth, and with a flip of his hand, he immediately took out an energy crystal from a Xianhuang beast. As soon as the energy crystal had appeared, a terrifying pulse of energy was emitted, filling the entire room. At the same time, Protector Shui, who sat on her bed in another area of the divine hall, sensed something. She slowly opened her eyes and glanced where Jianshen was cultivating. Her gaze was deep, as if she could directly see Jianshen beyond the various walls of ice in the room. However, Protector Shui retracted her gaze as if nothing had happened, slowly closing her eyes again. The Ice Goddess Hall is in danger right now. There are many things I don't care about and won't care about, but I hope that Jianshen really will behave how Mo Tianyun has described him in the future, where he will assist the Ice Goddess Hall in getting through this disaster, thought Protector Shui. Chapter 1433, The Fifth Layer of the Chaotic Body, 2. I hope this energy crystal can help me reach the fifth layer of the chaotic body successfully, Jian Chen murmured to himself as he gazed at the energy crystal in his hand. This was one of the two Class 10 Xianhuang Beast energy crystals he had obtained back in the Xianhuang microcosm. Back then, I was too weak and lacked an understanding of the origin realm, so it was difficult for me to distinguish energy crystals beyond the 9th class. Now that I look at it, this energy crystal is nowhere near the 10th class. It's at least a Class 11 or even a Class 12 crystal, and this was also the weaker energy crystal out of the two I obtained. The other energy crystal must have reached the 13th class at the very least. Jian Chen gently rubbed the energy crystal with his thumb. His eyes grew brighter and brighter as they became filled with his eagerness. If it were not for the ice soul, Jian Chen would not have chosen to absorb one of the two most powerful energy crystals he had ever obtained, because he was not confident that one would be enough for him to break through. The energy crystal was of an extremely high quality, but it was akin to monster cores after all. The benefits it could bring were nothing like the ice soul or the high-grade violet cloud peaches, so even if he absorbed it, he would not break through. However, he had now reached the peak of the 4th layer with the ice soul. This was the best moment for him to make a breakthrough. Jian Chen sucked in a deep breath and slowly calmed himself. He immediately gathered his concentration and devoted himself to refining the energy crystal in his hand. He planned to reach the 5th layer in a single stroke. The 5th layer of the chaotic body was extremely significant to Jian Chen. Not only would it drastically increase his strength, but it would give him the ability to refine the Yin-Yang Saint Rock. 7 days later, a loud crack finally rang out. Jian Chen was filled with eagerness. A ball of extremely terrifying chaotic force filled his body, and at that moment, his body suddenly began to swell. He became a giant, as if he had been blown up like a balloon. Every breakthrough of the chaotic body would be equivalent to the chaotic Niden shattering, and each shattering would bring tremendous pain. The muscles on Jian Chen's face twitched as his forehead became covered with cold sweat in a single moment. His face had already paled. Even though his chaotic Niden had already shattered several times before, he still found the ripping pain unbearable. However, Jian Chen was willing to accept a great increase in strength for bearing with the intense pain. Vast amounts of chaotic force rampaged through Jian Chen's body before slowly being compressed. Virtually at every moment, the chaotic force within Jian Chen's body shrank, undergoing a process of compression, slowly changing his 4th layer chaotic force to the 5th layer. At the same time, Jian Chen's body endured the battering of the strengthened chaotic force. His flesh also toughened at a visible rate, becoming even more powerful. This process lasted for several days and Jian Chen finally reached the 5th layer of the chaotic body. Both the toughness of his body and his chaotic force had increased in quality. The chaotic Niden in his dantian had been reduced to the size of a soybean once again. Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes. He sensed the strengthened chaotic force in his chaotic Niden and could not help but smile. He was filled with joy. The energy crystal in his hand had not been fully absorbed. He had only used a third of the energy present. My chaotic Niden is too small right now. The chaotic force stored inside is limited. Although the chaotic force will be consumed very slowly, the next wave of invasions from the world of Forsaken Saints should not be too far off. At that time, the battle will definitely be even more intense and even more difficult, Jian Chen pondered. He chose to continue his secluded cultivation and continued to refine the energy crystal in his hand. A few more days passed and the energy crystal in Jian Chen's hands finally disappeared. However, he now needed several times or even more than 10 times the amount of energy now that he had reached the 5th layer, so the amount of chaotic force he managed to refine from the remaining 2/3 of the energy crystal was extremely limited. It had only increased his chaotic Niden to the size of 1.5 soybeans. Sigh. The further I progress, the more energy I require. When my chaotic body was still at the 4th layer, a single ice soul was enough to make me reach the peak of the 4th layer. I probably need 10 of them to reach the peak of the 5th layer. If I want to reach the 6th layer, probably even 100 won't be enough. Jian Chen sighed inside. The chaotic body really was very powerful, but there was endless pangs of pain behind its strength. However, I have truly become a Saint Emperor now. I have the battle prowess of a Saint Emperor without my comprehension of the way of the sword and without the azulate swords. If I use the way of the sword, there should be no Saint Emperors that can hold their ground against me. If I use the azulate swords as well. Jian Chen wondered. Only a while later did he think, I should be able to battle against the clone of the Spirit King. However, his comprehension of the way of the sword is greater than mine. The Spirit King. Jian Chen felt very pressured as soon as he thought about the Spirit King, because he was just too powerful. He had sent just a single clone, yet it required Xiaoling, the sea goddess, and him to work together to fend off. If he had come personally, even all the power this world possessed would not be enough to stop him. Although the world had gained 2 origin realm experts, Yang Lai and Gui Haidao, while the 8 other founding ancestors of the still not awakened, Jian Chen understood that their strength had fallen from the origin realm to Saint Emperor after all. Even with the assistance of their saint artifacts, they were receival experts at most. The disparity against the Spirit King was just far too great, so they would not be much help in an actual battle against him. This was unless they recovered their peak strength and reached the origin realm again. And even if they returned to the origin realm in terms of strength, there were other origin realm experts in the world of Forsaken Saints aside from the Spirit King, and they outnumbered Jian Chen's world by quite a lot. I can now absorb the Yin and Yang Qi from the Yin Yang Saint Rock, but I need the assistance of the Heavenly Enchantress. Sigh. Jian Chen's head ached. He became filled with helplessness as soon as he recalled the Heavenly Enchantress. He gently shook his head and opened the room's door. As soon as the door was opened, Jian Chen saw his sister seated there. He evidently became stunned. Changyang Mingyue sensed his emergence as well and stood up. She looked at him and became surprised. She said, "Brother, you've absorbed the 10,000-year-old ice soul so quickly? Are you sure you haven't hidden it away in your space ring?" Changyang Mingyue suddenly became stern. She said seriously, "Brother, you have to listen to me. You have to absorb the entirety of the ice soul, or I won't let you leave here." Chapter 1434, The Truth Behind the Seal. Sister, how is it possible for me to not listen to you? You got me to fully absorb the ice soul, so why wouldn't I listen to you? I've already fully absorbed the ice soul you gave me. Jian Chen smiled helplessly. He possessed the chaotic body, so the rate he could refine energy was incomparable to ordinary cultivators. In this period of seclusion, not only had he fully absorbed the ice soul, he had even refined an origin realm Xianhuang beast's energy crystal. Really? Have you really absorbed the ice soul so quickly? According to Protector Shui, even I need at least several years to fully absorb an ice soul. How did you do it in a few short months? Changyang Mingyue suspiciously questioned him. However, she seemed to think of something very soon. She appeared enlightened as she said to herself, "I understand now. It must be because of Brother's extraordinary talent, which is why you could absorb the ice soul in such a short time. This is also explains why Brother's strength has been increasing so rapidly." Jian Chen smiled but did not give a detailed explanation. He said, "Sister, I've stayed here for long enough. I plan on returning today. As time goes on, the next wave of invasions from the foreign world grows near. I must return to the Tianyuan continent to make preparations, but I want to see Protector Shui before I leave. I have a few questions I want to ask her." Changyang Mingyue also understood the precarious situation of the current Tianyuan continent, so she did not urge Jian Chen to stay. She said, "Brother, once my profound ice body matures, I'll come to the Tianyuan continent to look for you. We can fend off the invasion of the foreign world together. Let's go, I'll take you to see Protector Shui. Her strength is unfathomable where even I can't sense how great it is. If there's anything you're unsure about, feel free to ask her." Jian Chen obviously met Protector Shui without any obstructions under Changyang Mingyue's personal guidance. Very soon, he saw her again in the same room of ice. "Speak, what do you have to ask this king?" "I can answer some things you should know, seeing how Her Majesty is your sister." After bowing to Changyang Mingyue, Protector Shui turned her icy cold gaze toward Jian Chen. Jian Chen bowed to Protector Shui and got straight to the point. "Senior, our world's currently sealed, preventing the cultivators of this world from reaching the origin realm. It's also lead to no origin realm experts for the 4 races since ancient times. May I ask if this seal was cast down by Senior? The world may be sealed, preventing everyone from reaching the origin realm aside from species with powerful bloodlines and natural spirits of the world. However, you walk a different path, where you don't need origin energy to reach the origin realm. As a result, the seal cannot stop you. Since it's no problem to you, why are you sticking your nose into matters that you don't need to care about? You cannot interfere with these matters," Protector Shui coldly responded. "But this matter is connected to my great-grandfather. He's currently at the peak of Saint Emperor and is unable to reach the origin realm because of the existence of this seal. His lifespan is limited to 10,000 years. This is how it's connected to me. And the Tian Yuan continent is currently facing the threat of the world of Forsaken Saints. If we do not increase the number of origin realm experts we have, we will not be able to stop them. Senior, please release the seal in consideration of all the life in this world so that they have a chance of reaching the origin realm," Jian Chen sincerely said, almost like he was pleading. In his eyes, Protector Shui's strength was unfathomable. It was extremely likely that she had already reached godhood, so if she did not remove the seal, Yang Lai and the others would never be able to reach the origin realm. Although he believed that he would possess the power to break through the seal in 10,000 years, there were quite a few origin realm experts in the foreign world. No one knew whether Yang Lai and the others would survive the coming battles. After all, they had fallen from the origin realm to Saint Emperor and were only able to display the strength of the origin realm through their saint artifacts. However, that was only the strength of the weakest origin realm experts. Once they came across true origin realm experts, it would be very difficult for them to stop them. "Leave. I am unable to remove this seal," Protector Shui said coldly. Jian Chen became bitter. He had known long ago that the outcome would be like this, but he still felt extremely depressed. Once the seal was removed, Yang Lai and Gui Haidao would still be able to reach the origin realm even without origin energy, because they had stored some origin energy in their saint artifacts. If the seal was not removed, Yang Lai and Gui Haidao would still not be able to break through even with their origin energy. "Protector Shui, I order you to remove the seal immediately," Changyang Mingyue said with an irrefutable tone. Protector Shui dared not to behave as indifferent as she was with Jian Chen. She gently sighed as a sliver of helplessness appeared in her cold eyes. She said, "Your Majesty, I really do not have the ability to remove the seal. I may not have cast the seal, but I know who did. It was cast by Her Majesty. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult for the matters here to avoid the divination of the experts from the saints' world. Otherwise, quite a few people from the saints' world would have come looking for Your Majesty." Jian Chen was disappointed when he heard that. He had never thought that the seal was actually cast down by the ice goddess. The ice goddess was a grand prime, a supreme expert who stood at the apex of the higher world. Even after 10,000 years, he might not be able to gain the strength to break through a seal cast down by someone so strong. At the same time, he worried about his sister. Jian Chen left the ice goddess hall. Although he had not managed to get the seal removed, he had learned exactly who had cast it down as well as who was responsible for the missing history from the ancient era. It was definitely Protector Shui's handiwork, and her intentions were to prevent anyone from entering the saints' world and exposing what was happening here, which would have endangered his sister. Although the method was shocking and extremely brutal, Jian Chen was unable to determine whether Protector Shui was right or wrong. If it was himself, what would he have done to protect the people most important to him? Jian Chen left the icy tundra and returned to the Tian Yuan continent on his sword. However, Jian Chen suddenly came to a halt at this moment. He gazed into the distance as his eyes shone. He was gazing in the direction of the wasteland continent. Even though the wasteland continent was extremely far away, Jian Chen could still sense an extremely tremendous pulse in that direction. There's more than 10 members of the 100 races that have reached Saint Emperor and several dozen are reaching Saint King at the same time, Jian Chen murmured. He knew that it must have been Tai Ta using the violet cloud peaches to increase the strength of the strongest experts of the 100 races, which was why so many people had broken through. Tai Ta's already begun to move. I can't fall behind either, Jian Chen said before speeding up. He disappeared into the horizon as a violet streak of light. Chapter 1435. Acquaintances of the past. Jian Chen returned to the Tian Yuan continent and descended in the Changyang clan of Lore City. The Changyang clan announced something that shook up the entire continent, causing a great commotion everywhere. All 6th cycle Heaven Saint Masters would experience the chance to become a saint ruler if they gathered outside Lore City in 3 days' time. All saint rulers who had comprehended saint tier battle skills or were at the 7th heavenly layer or above would have the chance to become a saint king if they gathered outside Lore City in 3 days' time. All saint kings at the 8th heavenly layer or above would have the chance of becoming a saint emperor if they gathered outside Lore City in 3 days' time. These 3 pieces of information spread across the entire continent like wildfire soon after the Changyang clan announced them. All the hermit and ancient clans who had isolated themselves from the world received the news. Even the mysterious experts who remained hidden within the wilderness all year round to cultivate received the news from their friends as well. They were all astounded and could not calm down even after a very long time. The current world lacked origin energy, making it impossible for saint emperors to reach the origin realm and extremely difficult for saint kings to reach saint emperor. There were countless experts who had devoted their lives to cultivation only to stop at Saint King. On the continent, saint emperors had almost stopped appearing entirely. Only the Path Lord of Carnal Desires managed to become a saint emperor through the creation of his 7 emotions and 6 desires, becoming the only supreme expert for quite some time. In the eyes of all the saint kings on the Tian Yuan continent, the path to saint emperor had fallen apart long ago. Even those who had reached great perfection and were only an inch away from Saint Emperor could not avoid the miserable ending of being reduced to a pile of bones. Yet now, the Changyang clan of Lore City had claimed that they would give Saint Kings a chance to become Saint Emperors. This matter immediately exploded among the Saint Kings, throwing countless people into an uproar. No one doubted the abilities of the Changyang clan because they were the clan the human sovereign Jian Chen belonged to. Several months ago, a few new saint emperors appeared on the Tian Yuan continent, and they all possessed close ties to Jian Chen. Everyone knew that the reason why these people could skyrocket in strength and all become saint emperors was all because of Jian Chen's assistance. Some saint kings who fulfilled the requirements even ripped open space gates to hurry to the Changyang clan the moment they received the news. A few saint rulers and heaven saint masters who fulfilled the requirements did not hesitate either. They all ventured to the cities, sects, or clans with space gates as soon as they heard the news and paid a large price so that they could make it to Lore City in the shortest amount of time possible. The moment the news spread from the Changyang clan, 2 saint kings in the clan ripped open space gates and left excitedly. They went to the sea realm and the beast god continent respectively. One of the saint kings was a magical beast while the other one was a member of the sea race. They had remained on the Tian Yuan continent to keep guard and had been summoned by Jian Chen. He got them to take a similar announcement with them. The 2 experts reported the news to Yadrium and Sunxiong, greatly shocking the 2 saint emperors. They immediately broadcasted this news across the entire sea realm and beast god continent as well. The sea realm and beast god continent were thrown into an uproar as well. The saint kings who fulfilled the requirements all surged with emotion. They could not remain where they were for a single moment longer, eagerly heading to the Tian Yuan continent. Not only did Jian Chen want to increase the overall strength of the humans on the Tian Yuan continent, but he had also invited the sea race and magical beasts to take part in this event as well. In just the first day since he had let out the news, over 10,000 people had gathered outside Lore City. All of them looked toward the small city in reverence. All these people had hurried over on the first day. Most of them were Heaven's Saint Masters, with Saint Rulers making up an extremely small portion. There were even many Heaven's Saint Masters and Saint Rulers who did not match the requirements present. They had come with the mindset to watch or to try their luck, hoping that they would be chosen if Jian Chen decided to make exceptions. All of them stood on the ground, including the Saint Rulers. No one dared to hover in the sky, and even when they communicated with one another, they purposefully stifled their voices. They did not cause a great disturbance, as if the city before them was holy. Even the Saint Rulers did not step into the city, staying outside in the wilderness. The Changyang clan was currently filled with the Saint Kings of the three races. However, without any exceptions, all the Saint Kings had lowered their statuses and acted extremely modestly. There was a vague sense of reverence present. They did not even dare to offend a single servant of the clan. A palace-like hall stood within the Changyang clan. It was grand and the most eye-catching piece of infrastructure in the clan. This hall was the place where Jian Chen stayed in the clan. Jian Chen always remained in there as he tidied the heavenly resources on him. He did not visit anyone. There were many Saint Kings who had wanted to see him to pay their respects, but they were all denied entry. His hall became a holy place in the eyes of all the Saint Kings. There were many Saint Kings who believed that all the people who managed to enter the hall would receive infinite glory. At this moment, a small group of Saint Kings courteously arrived before the hall where Jian Chen stayed. One of them said to the two female servants at the entrance, "Taido wishes to see ruler Jian Chen." After that, the entire group bowed to the hall. They all bore the respect they felt from the bottom of their hearts on their faces. A few Saint Kings in the surroundings secretly shook their heads when they saw their actions. They could already guess what would happen. "Esteemed guests, the young master is not seeing anyone," the two beautiful servants repeated something they had said countless times with smiles. Whenever they mentioned young master, there was evident admiration and adoration in their voices. It was close to a fanatical level. "Come in." However, Jian Chen's voice rang out from inside as soon as the two servants finished speaking. The Saint Kings in the surroundings immediately froze when they heard his voice, suddenly turning their heads to the group of Saint Kings standing at the entrance. Envy filled their eyes as well as a certain strangeness. There had been countless Saint Kings who had wanted to see Jian Chen, including many Saint Kings at great perfection. Without a single exception, they were all turned down at the entrance, yet this group had succeeded. The two servants at the entrance were stunned. Their opinions of this group of people immediately changed as well. If it was before, they would have been utterly frightened if Saint Rulers stood before them, let alone Saint Kings. They would even worry about breathing too loudly, but on this day, the two of them had discovered that Saint Kings only amounted to so much. The group of people entered the hall. As soon as they saw Jian Chen, who was sorting through the violet cloud peaches and comprehension tea leaves, they all dropped to their knees and said, "We greet the ruler." They were the Saint Kings from the Turtle Clan as well as Taido, who had initially pledged his loyalty to Jian Chen. Jian Chen glanced over them and gently sighed, "You already know that I'm not the ruler of the Turtle Clan, so why must you kneel for me? Please get up." Chapter 1436, Powering Up Together. 1. Ruler, it doesn't matter whether you're a part of the Turtle Clan. You will always be the most respected and greatest ruler to the entire clan. The only reason why we are so glorious today is all because of Ruler, an elder of the clan said emotionally. He felt respect from the bottom of his heart for Jian Chen. "Ruler, my life belongs to you. It doesn't matter whether you're a human or a part of the sea race, I, Taido, will always treat you as my master." Taido dropped to his knees and said extremely seriously while he kept his head very low. Jian Chen's emotions became rather mixed as he looked at these people. With a flip of his hand, a Niden appeared. It slowly drifted before the elders of the clan under Jian Chen's control. The elders of the Turtle Clan immediately became fixated on the small Niden. They could sense an extremely dense Turtle Clan ruler's chi within it. "I obtained this Niden before, and it was exactly because of this that I possessed the ruler's chi of the Turtle Clan. This belongs to your clan, so I am returning it right now, Jian Chen softly said as he sighed inside. It was because of this Niden that he had become connected to the turtle clan in the sea realm. At the same time, it was also the reason the Grand Elder had given up his life to save him. This Niden had added a lot of ups and downs to his journey in the sea realm. The elders of the turtle clan remained on their knees. None of them extended their hands to accept the Niden. Jian Chen said when he saw this, my connection with the turtle clan was all brought on by this Niden. Now that the clan has returned to its former glory, I have completed the Grand Elder's final wish. I will not be going to the turtle clan very often from now on, so just treat the Niden as something I have left to the clan. After all, this Niden has accompanied me for quite some time in the past. The Saint Kings of the turtle clan all became very depressed. They carefully accepted the Niden with heavy emotions and a slight sense of devotedness, holding it in their hands like a treasure that they feared they would break. At that moment, the Niden had become a treasure that had surpassed all else in their eyes. This was because this was the item left to them by the greatest ruler in their history. It was something that had accompanied him for quite some time. The Niden was not worth a lot by itself, but it held significant value to the turtle clan. You all have consumed violet cloud peaches to reach Saint King before. The immortal peaches can only be consumed once every 100 years, so you won't be able to take part in this gathering this time, Jian Chen said to them. Ruler, we've come this time only to meet you personally. There was nothing else that we wanted, an elder politely replied. He felt no regrets at all. With their original strength, becoming a Saint King would have been an extremely distant dream to them. Some of them would not have been able to reach such a level of cultivation ever. The ruler had let them all become Saint Kings, so they were already extremely delighted. After all, Saint Kings were basically the limit of cultivation now that Saint Emperor was difficult to reach. The elders left. They did not stay in the Changyang clan any longer and instead rushed back to the clan as they carefully carried Jian Chen's Niden. They held an extravagant ceremony involving the entire clan and constructed a sacred tower. The Niden was enshrined on the highest floor of the tower. Jian Chen met another acquaintance soon after the elders of the turtle clan had left. Qin Yishuan had arrived in the Changyang clan in azure robes to meet Jian Chen. Qin Yishuan had already broken through to Saint Emperor when they met again. When she had consumed the violet cloud peach, a very limited amount of energy had leaked out. Even though it was just a first-grade immortal peach, it allowed her strength to increase drastically. Qin Yishuan sat on a seat opposite of Jian Chen. She was in melancholy mood. A sliver of loneliness was present in her eyes, along with some confusion. You've avenged yourself? Jian Chen asked. Qin Yishuan shook her head and gently sighed. Her expression was indescribably mixed as she softly said, my former enemy has already died. He did not die by my hands, but was slain by a foreign expert in the battle against the world of forsaken saints. Even his corpse can't be found. Qin Yishuan continued in a rather depressed fashion. Back when I was still a saint ruler, I was forced to flee to the sea realm due to my enemy. I hid there for 1,000 years, working hard on my cultivation day and night just so I could return a little sooner to take revenge. The heavenly resource you gave me recently allowed me to get through several minor levels of cultivation and break through to Saint Emperor. When I returned to the Tianyuan continent and went to the Yangji sect of the 10 protector clans, I found that they did not even have a single Saint King Great Elder left. When she reached there, Qin Yishuan suddenly smiled idiotically. She said to herself, the heavens sure do have their own way of doing things. I never thought that the heavens would pull such a joke on me. I cultivated arduously in the past just so I could personally kill my enemy, yet he's already dead, even though I have the strength to kill him. He did not even die in my hands. If I had known that this would happen, was there still any need for me to cultivate so hard? Qin Yishuan felt empty inside, as if she had lost all her objectives in life. Your enemy's actually a part of the Yangji sect? What happened between you and them? Jian Chen asked in surprise. Yang Yin of the Yangji sect wiped out my clan, Qin Yishuan responded, feeling immense sorrow. Jian fell silent. He just stared at her quietly. This is the Saint-Tier battle skill I took from the treasury of the Tao family before. I don't need it anymore, so I'm returning it to you. Qing Yishuan left behind a tablet of stone before turning around and leaving. With her back toward him, she seemed rather lonely and pessimistic. Jian watched Qing Yishuan leave before gently sighing. He put the stone tablet away with a wave of his hand. The flame mercenaries just happened to be in need of items like that. Experts constantly poured into Lore City within the 3 days. Not only had the city become the most renowned place on the continent, but even the Jesson Kingdom managed to profit from the fame. Even though its overall strength was not as great as the 8 great kingdoms, its status had completely superseded the 3 great empires. Jian uncle had returned to the Changyang clan after so many years. He had always remained in an unknown forest, cultivating in seclusion after cutting himself off from the world for all those years. Only now had he finished refining all the shards of venerable poison sword soul, so he had emerged as a result. He had inherited the Saint King's comprehension of the mysteries of the world. However, since the shards were incomplete, he only managed to inherit a portion of the venerable poison sword's understanding. He did not manage to return to the Saint King's peak strength, only having reached the 5th heavenly layer. Tianmu Ling had come as well. Jun Moheo and Wang Yinhong stuck close to her, clearly loving her very dearly. Tianmu Ling managed to see Jian without any obstructions at all. He learned that their Saint King ancestor had fallen, so Jun Moheo and Wang Yinhong were the most powerful in their clan now. Their status as an ancient clan was in danger. Jian clearly understood what Tianmu Ling wanted to say. He guaranteed that Jun Moheo and Wang Yinhong would both become Saint Kings. The 3 days passed very quickly and Jian tidied all the violet cloud peaches and comprehension tea leaves. He stored them away neatly in his space ring. He had harvested a total of 4 first-grade violet cloud peach trees, 3 second-grade violet cloud peach trees, 2 third-grade violet cloud peach trees, 2 fourth-grade violet cloud peach trees, and 3 fifth-grade violet cloud peach trees. There were 108 peaches on each tree, so he had a total of 432 first-grade immortal peaches, 324 second-grade immortal peaches, 216 third-grade immortal peaches, 216 fourth-grade immortal peaches, and 324 fifth-grade immortal peaches. Aside from the 5th-grade violet cloud peaches that only had half remaining and peaches he had given to Tai Ta, the others were almost untouched. Chapter 1437, Powering Up Together, 2. There were fewer comprehension tea leaves compared to violet cloud peaches. Jian had only harvested 3 first-grade comprehension tea trees and 1 5th-grade comprehension tea tree. Each tree bore 81 leaves and he had already used up almost half of the 5th-grade comprehension tea leaves. The difference in the numbers is just far too great and basically all the Saint Kings of the humans, magical beasts, and sea race have gathered here. Although there were many of them who did not fulfill the standards, there are still over 100 people beyond the 8th heavenly layer. Just that would require over 100 violet cloud peaches and a few of them aren't in possession of talent like Qing Yishuan's, so they'll end up wasting quite a lot of the energy in the heavenly resource. I need to give them immortal peaches that are not of the 1st grade, Jian murmured to himself as he frowned slightly. Other than that, there's several thousand saint rulers who reach the standards to become a saint king. If I just give them an immortal peach each, there won't be enough at all. There's even more heaven saint masters, over 10,000 of them. Looks like the heaven saint masters and saint rulers have to share an immortal peach between many people while the saint kings can consume an entire peach themselves. However, the people with great potential have to take priority. 3 days later, Jian finally emerged from the hall under the eager gazes of many saint kings. He appeared before all of them. This was the day Jian had promised to increase everyone's strength. All the saint kings of the 3 races had gathered before the hall. Jian had stayed in as they stared at the tightly shut door with anticipation and eagerness. As soon as Jian appeared before them, all their eyes lit up and they politely bowed to him. Greetings to Sovereign Jian. Greetings to Sovereign Jian. All the politeness from the Saint Kings originated from the bottom of their hearts. The world followed the rule of the jungle. They respected Jian Chen because of his strength. At the same time, Jian Chen had slain many foreign saint emperors in the battle before, protecting the continent. Just that was enough for many people to admire him. The group of senior members from the Changyang clan stood nearby. They all watched this unfold with smiles. Bai Yintian and Changyang Ba had even teared up in joy. This was all because the person that the Saint Kings greeted was their child. Jian Chen's elder brother, Changyang Ku, was in the crowd as well. He stared silently at this scene with mixed emotions. He was filled with envy, but his gaze bore some gloominess and dejection. Out of the 4 siblings of the Changyang clan, their eldest brother had been chosen by the Pure Heart Pavilion and had been taken there. Their sister had become the saintess of the mysterious ice goddess hall, so she possessed an extraordinary status, while their youngest brother had become the greatest human expert now. He was an existence that had surpassed Saint Emperor and deserved the respect of all Saint Kings. Only he remained nameless. Even though his strength had been propelled to Saint Ruler by the violet cloud peaches, he still felt the same as before. Even if he had become a Saint Ruler, he was still a nameless figure. Bai Dao also stared at Jian Chen in the crowd. He smiled with great pride. Uncle Chang, Changyang Zhu Yunshao, Changyang Zhu Yeyun, Changyang Zhu Shao, and the others were all the same as they stared at Jian Chen quietly. Jian Chen looked around and clasped his hands at everyone. He greeted a few Saint Kings before directly proceeding to the main topic. Everyone, you must already know that I have some heavenly resources that can rapidly increase your strength. I used these exact heavenly resources a few days ago to allow some of my friends and family to reach Saint King. The only unfortunate thing is that I don't have many of these heavenly resources left. However, the invasion of the world of forsaken saints is at our doorstep, so in order to strengthen all of us I am willing to share these heavenly resources with everyone and assist you in your breakthroughs. Sovereign Jian Chen is such a selfless person. If we possessed these heavenly resources, we would have tried keeping them just for ourselves, yet Sovereign Jian Chen is willing to give them to us. His selflessness is admiring. Sovereign Jian Chen, I may be a magical beast, but if I become a Saint Emperor, I am willing to join the Changyang clan and become its guardian if I survive the battle against the foreign world. Sovereign Jian Chen, if you can make me become a Saint Emperor, I'll serve you until my dying breath and never betray you. The blood of many Saint Kings began to boil. Their old faces became flushed as they loudly swore oaths. They were unable to keep their composure. Although many of them had reached the 8th heavenly layer, they did not have much longer to live, and they also knew that they had no chance of becoming a Saint Emperor. However, they all saw a sliver of hope from what Jian Chen had just said. Once they became Saint Emperors, not only would their strength undergo an overwhelming change, their lifespan would increase by 4,000 years as well. More importantly, there was a greater chance for them to survive the upcoming battle as Saint Emperors. As a result, there were even a few of them willing to cast away the last portion of their lives just to become Saint Emperors. The behavior of some of them seemed to be dim-witted, but they were all very clever. They knew that there would still be a very long road after Saint Emperor. Strength was still distinguished between the strong and the weak even in the origin realm. If they could successfully follow an origin realm expert with infinite potential, they would be able to obtain unknown benefits throughout their future cultivation. Jian Chen began to divide the violet cloud peaches. As even the weakest of the Saint Kings had reached the 8th heavenly layer, he had given them all 2nd and 3rd grade immortal peaches since they were not too far off from Saint Emperor. Jian Chen used 31st grade comprehension tea leaves together to make a cauldron of tea, sharing it evenly among the people. Afterward, Jian Chen personally brought them to an ancient forest for them to break through. Several days later, a large swathe of 9-colored rainbow clouds enveloped the entire continent. The clouds were extremely thick, formed from over 100 layers of rainbow clouds overlapping with one another. They shone with dazzling light as they flickered brightly. With the assistance of the immortal peaches, over 100 Saint Kings from the 3 races all successfully reached Saint Emperor. They became an extremely powerful force on the Tianyuan continent. At the same time, in a miniature world someplace on the continent, the rather pale Path Lord of Carnal Desires sat in a room to recover. He was naked while several other young, naked women lay dead in a corner of the room with blood splattered across their bodies. Suddenly, the Path Lord opened his eyes, and they immediately glowed brighter. He seemed to be able to pierce through space with his gaze and see the outside world. Over 100 Saint Emperors, the Path Lord of Carnal Desires said with a deep voice as shock filled his eyes. Soon after that, his face sank. When I broke through to Saint Emperor, it was almost impossible. I used my entire life to create the path of 6 emotions and 7 desires before I finally became a Saint Emperor, becoming the only Saint Emperor among the humans. Yet now, these people have all easily gotten through the bottleneck that I poured my soul out for, all with Jian Chen's help. Jian Chen, I curse you a horrible death, the Path Lord gritted his teeth. His sickly face had already become warped from intense envy and a sense of unfairness. Why, just why did his breakthrough have to be so difficult while these people had it so easily? How was it fair that these people could just cultivate for a few days and reach what he had used several millennia to attain? Chapter 1438, Severance of Emotions and Desires. Why, just why did I need to waste several thousand years to become a Saint Emperor while they only need a few days to become one? Even those 8th heavenly layer Saint Kings have broken through in a few short days, making it through the 9th heavenly layer in great perfection permanently. Back then, I used my comprehension of the cultivation method for the Pure Heart Pavilion and poured my soul out in order to create a different cultivation method, allowing me to become the only human Saint Emperor. Yet now, there's suddenly over 100 of them and they've broken through so easily. Why, just why does it have to be so difficult for me and so easy for them? This is unfair. I cannot accept this, the Path Lord sat in a room and roared out. His face had already become warped and, coupled with his sickly appearance, he seemed extremely vicious. Jian Chen, it's you. It's all because of you. Sure, you cultivate fast, but do you really have to make all these people, who are not related to you at all, become Saint Emperors and make my cultivation, which I spent thousands of years on, not worth a single cent? You're purposefully directing this at me, the Path Lord gritted his teeth. He was filled with hatred. He blamed Jian Chen for everything. Originally, the Path Lord had been the only Saint Emperor on the Tian Yuan continent, the only human Saint Emperor, who even the ancient protector clans didn't easily offend. His name could shake the entire continent, and he was known as the greatest human expert both in name and reality. However, after Jian Chen appeared, everything changed. Not only had Jian Chen taken his status as the greatest human expert, but Jian Chen also received the admiration of everyone. Even worse, Jian Chen was helping many people reach Saint Emperor, allowing the Tian Yuan continent to gain several dozen Saint Emperors. The Path Lord status, which was once the greatest, only dropped lower and lower with each coming day. I want to break through. I want to break through Saint Emperor and become an Origin Realm sovereign. Today, I'll completely sever my 7 emotions and 6 desires and complete the cultivation path I have created. Madness filled the Path Lord's eyes. Raising his hand, a powerful force gushed out and smashed through the stone door of the room. He left. This was a miniature world carved out by the Path Lord himself. Not a lot of people lived in it, only a few thousand. Other than the several dozen wives of the Path Lord and his 100 or so children, the others all belonged to the sect that the Path Lord had created. They were the disciples of the Carnal Desires sect. The Carnal Desires sect had been founded by the Path Lord several thousand years ago. All of them cultivated in the miniature world and rarely left, which was why they were not very well known on the Tian Yuan continent. Many people did not even know that a sect like this existed. The place where the Path Lord cultivated was near the sect. As soon as he emerged, 2 middle-aged men heard the commotion and flew over from afar. They bowed to the Path Lord and politely said, "Greetings to the Path Lord." The 2 men were both saint rulers. They were the only 2 saint rulers in the Carnal Desires sect and the strongest experts aside from the Path Lord. They all practiced the cultivation method that the Path Lord had created. The Path Lord was emotionless. His eyes were filled with a cold ruthlessness. His looked at the two men like he was looking at two corpses. The Path Lord silently appeared before the two of them. He raised his hands and pressed them against their heads, and with a bang, their heads immediately exploded. Their souls were wiped out as well. They were mercilessly slain by the Path Lord. The Path Lord's expression did not change at all. He stared at the sect in the distance and walked through the empty air. He steadily made his way over. There were several thousand disciples in the Carnal Desires sect. Although they practiced the cultivation method that the Path Lord had invented, it was not suitable for everyone since it deviated from the beaten track. As a result, the sect had never produced a saint king in the several thousand years it had existed, even though they all practiced a cultivation method created by a talented saint emperor. The strongest of them had only reached saint ruler. The Path Lord entered the sect. As he looked at the familiar buildings, he murmured, "The 7 emotions are composed of joy, anger, sorrow, fear, love, hatred, and desire, while the 6 desires are life, death, sight, hearing, taste, and smell. I have already understood the 7 emotions and 6 desire and have created the palms of emotions and desires. It's just that I still haven't severed the last few aspects of the 7 emotions and 6 desires. It's not that I can't sever them, but I didn't want to sever them because it wasn't the right time. Or maybe it's because I never had the willpower to sever them. But now, this is my final choice. I have to sever them and let my strength increase." Surpassing Saint Emperor, the Path Lord silently disappeared from the main entrance of the sect, and soon cries of fear and disbelief rang out. "Path Lord, what are you doing? Wu Lin is innocent. He's never done anything against the sect, so why did you kill him? Spare me, Path Lord, spare me, Path Lord, why are you killing us? Everyone run, the Path Lord's gone mad. The Path Lord is slaughtering everyone like crazy." The Path Lord's ruthless massacre was targeted at the disciples of the Carnal Desires sect. All the disciples he came across either had their heads blown up or necks snapped. No one could escape the claws of the Path Lord. Gradually, the ground became dyed with red and the metallic smell of blood grew heavier and heavier. More and more corpses collapsed on the ground. The cries for help alerted the entire sect. Very soon, all the disciples learned that the Path Lord had gone mad. They immediately fled in fear, but the sect had been surrounded by a powerful barrier long ago. In the end, not a single disciple managed to make it out. All of them launched useless attacks at the barrier out of despair. The Path Lord was covered in blood, all from the disciples he had slain in his own sect. With the Path Lord's strength, he could have annihilated the entire place with a wave of his hand, but he did not do that. He took action personally, sending disciple after disciple into the afterlife. The Path Lord had not gone mad. His eyes were clear and filled with resolution. He would comprehend the slaughter of each person closely as he underwent the final severing process. There were many methods to sever the emotions and desires, and there was no need to sacrifice the lives of others to complete his cultivation method. However, the Path Lord just happened to choose the most brutal method. The sect was strewn with corpses, without a living disciple. All of them had been personally slain by the Path Lord. He then gazed into the depths of the miniature world after personally destroying the sect he had founded. A beautiful hall stood there. It was the Path Lord's residence, where his several dozen wives and close to 100 daughters and sons resided. The Path Lord made his way to the residence in the depths of the miniature world. He entered every room and mercilessly sent his past lovers, daughters, and sons into the afterlife. He had become a ruthless person. The residence was filled with cries of shock and fear. Many people in the residence had learned that the Path Lord had gone mad. They tried to flee, flying in all directions, but they could not leave the miniature world no matter where they fled. In the end, even the servants within the hall were slain, totaling several hundred people. Neither his wives nor children were spared, the youngest was not even 10 years old. The Path Lord's gaze became cold after ending the lives of everyone. There seemed to be nothing in his eyes, yet they were also filled with everything in the world. He seemed connected to the world. In a flash, he arrived in a mausoleum. There were several dozen tombs that held the family of the Path Lord. They were either his past lovers or his children, having almost all departed for the afterlife because of old age. The Path Lord coldly stared at the mausoleum and did not feel any reluctance at all. He raised his hand and pressed down. Immediately, an extremely large hand appeared out of nowhere and slammed into the mausoleum. With a heavy boom, all the structures vanished. They were replaced by a dark, hand-shaped pit that was several hundred meters deep. The last step is to sever life and death. The Path Lord sat in the air as he mumbled to himself without any emotions. Living is life, and the 7 desires and 6 emotions come from life. Aside from life and death, I have severed them all, so this life no longer exists either. I only have death now. Sever life and death by completely cutting away the impurities and only leaving behind the initial source, returning to my true self. I will use my palms of desires and emotions to completely eliminate all impurities in my soul and sever any impure thoughts that are left in me. The Path Lord raised his hand. An invisible blade had already condensed in his hand. He then stabbed it into his soul. The blade was condensed from his palms of desires and emotions. It did not harm his physical body because it only targeted his soul. The blade entered his soul with a flash, and after severing a hazy, bright part of his soul immediately shrank by a huge portion. It became extremely weak. The Path Lord violently trembled. It was extremely painful for him as the blade fell. His soul was heavily injured. However, his soul became even more translucent after he had taken the blade to it. All the impurities and random thoughts left in his soul had been severed the blade. Chapter 1439, Paving a Path with Hatred. The Path Lord immediately became empty inside when the blade fell. At that moment, he seemed to have entered a mental state where there were no emotions or desires. Everything in his gaze was clear. He could see through everything in the world. He had been liberated by letting go of his emotions and desires and abandoning life and death. The Path Lord seemed to have let go of all his past hatred for Jian Chen as well as all the amenities he had accumulated in the past. In his current state, he felt indifferent toward breaking through the barrier of Saint Emperor and joining the Origin Realm. The Path Lord sat there and felt empty inside. In his current state, he felt like he was infinitely closer to the world and seemed to have reached conformity with the world, comprehending things unknowingly. He had truly become desireless and emotionless. However, he still retained a basic instinct after becoming so close to the world, which urged him to continue his comprehension. The Path Lord's strength silently increased. Although the saint force within him did not increase at all, his comprehension of the world constantly increased. His weakened soul gradually recovered as well. Not only had his soul surpassed his peak condition, but it continued to rise up and strengthen. I can sense that I am getting closer and closer to the Origin Realm, thought the Path Lord. He could sense the changes extremely clearly, but he did not feel any joy at all. After severing his emotions and desires, increases to his strength were unable to excite him. In fact, anything in the world, whether delightful or sorrowful, would no longer be enough to instill any emotion within him, including his own life or death. I met the Saint Emperors of the Beast God continent a few times in the past. Kaiser had once said that even if I severed my desires and emotions, I would still not be able to surpass Saint Emperor. How can he understand just how wondrous my path of cultivation is? The Origin Realm is already within my grasp, but even if I do reach it, why? For greater strength, or for 100,000 more years of life? Where does my path lie after today? What will I pursue after today? Suddenly, a sliver of confusion appeared in the Path Lord's eyes. He had severed all his desires and emotions, including the aspirations of his life. He had walked this path too hurriedly and without appropriate preparations, so he faced the danger of losing himself. This was a bottleneck as well as a tribulation. If he could overcome it, he would immediately reach the Origin Realm, but if he could not, his path would end there, and he would be reduced to a living corpse. What is the purpose of my cultivation? What is the purpose of my existence? Why am I trying to reach the origin realm? Where does my path after today lie? The Path Lord became more and more confused. Although he had severed his emotions and desires like Changyanghu, making it seem like they were walking the same path on the surface, Changyanghu's path was one that truly conformed to the world. Everything he did was in accordance to nature and conformed to the truths of the world. The Path Lord's path deviated a little. The Path Lord would never have come across this confusion before the split. He would be able to find an answer instantly, but he had clearly rushed it too much by forcefully severing his emotions and desires using an extreme method to enter a desireless and emotionless state. The path ahead still had not been paved, so he immediately became confused when he reached the end of it. He was unsure where to go. This was because a severed path had appeared before him. This path was also his life as the Path Lord. Originally, he had been forced onto this path by Jian Chen and had also been urged by his emotions and desires to obtain greater strength and a longer lifespan. As a result, his path had been constructed from his emotions and desires. But after severing them, he became desireless and emotionless, so his original path was no longer suitable for him. The path ahead of him had reached a dead end. The Path Lord's strength continued to increase and his understanding of the world deepened. However, this understanding could not help him pave the severed path ahead of him. At this moment, he stood at the end of his path and gazed ahead in confusion. He did not know where else he could go. However, a mysterious and extremely powerful force appeared from outer space at this moment. It gushed into the Path Lord's miniature world with a destructive aura. The Path Lord sensed this force. He felt fear and shock for the first time because of the force. With his current strength, he actually felt like he was not even as great as an ant before the mysterious force. It could be said that the mysterious force from outer space was an ocean while he was a rowboat that floated in it. Only a very small wave would have been enough to annihilate him. The mysterious force did not devastate the Path Lord directly, but it instead interfered with the laws of the world. It helped him awaken from his desireless and emotionless state, preventing his comprehension and preventing his breakthrough. The Path Lord's face suddenly changed. He paled in a single instant and became haggard. His seated body swayed as if he was about to collapse. He had been forced out of the wondrous state of mind by the mysterious power, causing unimaginable damage to his soul. The strength he had just gained rapidly declined when he left that state of mind. His soul grew weaker and would soon disperse. This was like an unreturnable path. Once he embarked on it, the path behind him would disappear. He could only advance, and if he did not break through, his soul would disperse. My path collapses without my faith. I proceeded to hurry before and did not find my future path, so I did not reach the origin realm successfully. What I need to do right now is find the path leading to the origin realm, the Path Lord murmured to himself. His soul gradually weakened as every moment in his life flashed before his eyes. His desireless and emotionless state of mind gradually became blurred. When he thought of Jian Chen, when he thought about how he had been forced by Jian Chen to sever his emotions and desires without the proper preparations, impurities immediately began to litter his extremely fragile but pure soul. Suddenly, the Path Lord's eyes lit up. He gritted his teeth, being desireless and emotionless no longer works. If I really have to reach that realm, then I have to abandon my hatred for Jian Chen, but the only reason why I am caught where I am right now, where I cannot go any further or go back, is all because of Jian Chen. This is unbearable, so I will pave my future path with my hatred for Jian Chen. Jian Chen, I shall build my path of hatred for you. It will lead me to the origin realm. The Path Lord's pure soul became more and more contaminated. Unknowingly, his path was already leading off in the exact opposite direction he had headed in initially. Chapter 1440, A Severed Path. Severing the emotions and desires would be freeing the body from everything that had held it down, allowing an unbound soul to break through. The Path Lord had completely failed when he tried to follow that path. He had severed his emotions and desires too hurriedly and without taking the appropriate measures. He had completely failed to find the rest of his path. As he stood at the end, he lost his sense of direction for the future. He became confused and came across an obstruction on his path to the origin realm. However, there was no way back once he embarked on this path. His initial path no longer suited him, so he needed to abandon it. He couldn't continue on a broken path. He needed to pave a new path. He paved this path using his hatred of Jian Chen. Originally, the Path Lord would not have been able to feel any hatred with his pure soul since he had severed his emotions and desires. However, the mysterious force from outer space had forced him out of that mental state, greatly injuring his soul and making it extremely weak. Even the slightest stimulation would have pushed him over the edge. The Path Lord's eyes lost their clarity and were replaced with madness. Hatred burned within them as well. This hatred was so powerful that it was enough to annihilate his own soul. This burning hatred mixed with his soul. Jian Chen, the only reason why I'm like this now is all because of you. I want to surpass Saint Emperor. I want to surpass you and then torture you to death in the most brutal fashion possible. The Path Lord roared at the sky, causing the entire miniature world to tremble. His face had become viciously distorted. His hatred for Jian Chen was increasing at an unbelievable rate. His enmity for Jian Chen had not reached such an irreconcilable level before, but he had decided to use his hatred to pave a path to the origin realm. This led to the rapid increase of his hatred. The Path Lord of carnal desires was currently caught on the path between Saint Emperor and the origin realm. Because the path had not been completed and did not exist, he had not broken through, but everything would be extremely smooth as soon as he had found a new one. His strength was increasing at an unbelievable rate as he inched toward the origin realm. If this continued, he definitely would have been able to become an origin realm expert. However, the supreme force from outer space appeared once again as he moved along the path to the origin realm. It stopped him from breaking through. I want to surpass Saint Emperor. I want to surpass Jian Chen. I want to become the greatest expert on the Tian Yuan continent. No one can stop me. No matter who it is, no one can stop my advance to the origin realm. The Path Lord roared out as determination and madness filled his eyes. He did not pay any attention to the obstruction of the powerful force. He charged forward. He would not stop unless he reached his objective. The powerful force began to surge. It silently condensed into a completely invisible finger, which was gently pointed at the Path Lord. With this simple gesture, the entire world seemed to fall silent. Air seemed to stop flowing, time seemed to stop moving, and the entire world seemed to have frozen. The Path Lord froze as well. In the blink of an eye, his gaze became lifeless, but his body continued to surge with life, giving off terrifying pulses of energy. However, his soul had already vanished. He had turned into a soulless shell. The miniature world immediately fell silent. There were no more of the Path Lord's mad roars, no more of the liveliness from before. It had fallen into a dead silence. The mysterious force from outer space had completely vanished as well. In the Arctic Ice Goddess Hall, Protector Shui stared coldly into the distance. To no surprise, she stared in the direction of the Path Lord's miniature world. Her gaze seemed to be able to pierce through the spatial barriers, allowing her to see the Path Lord. Another person with impressive talent. What a pity. Protector Shui shook her head as she gently murmured to herself. However, her eyes remained cold, lacking any sympathy. At the same time, the sea goddess, Tai Ta, the heavenly enchantress, Jian Chen, Xiao Jin, Xiao Ling, Yang Lai, Gui Haidao, Feng Xiao Tian, and Fairy Hao Yu in the Bright Moon Divine Hall all looked in the direction of the Path Lord. This force has appeared again, murmured the sea goddess, before gently sighing. She knew that another expert had died. Tai Ta sat in the War God Hall as he gazed into the distance in interest. A sliver of suspicion filled his eyes. Xiao Ling and Xiao Jin looked in the direction of the Path Lord's miniature world in outer space in doubt, but they lost interest very soon. Jian Shen, Yang Lai, Gui Haidao, and Feng Xiaotian were all stern. Aside from Jian Shen, they all ripped open space gates and immediately hurried over personally. Soon after the three of them had departed, Jian Shen glanced at the Saint Emperors who had just completed their breakthrough. After hesitating for a while, he said to newbies, Changyang Zhu Shao, and the other beside him, I will be leaving temporarily. I'll help the Saint Rulers and Heaven Saint Masters break through after I come back. Jian Shen rode off on the Ziying sword as a violet streak of light, moving extremely quickly. Fairy Haoyu sat in the bright moon divine hall. Her eyes were fixated in the distance, but her face was nonchalant. The cold and aloof heavenly enchantress stood on the peak of Three Saint Mountain with her zither in her hands. Her beautiful eyes were filled with serious shock as she gazed in the direction of the Tian Yuan continent. What a powerful pulse of energy! Who is it? The heavenly enchantress murmured. Her face was filled with surprise. Jian Shen arrived outside the Path Lord's miniature world on his sword. Finding the miniature world was nothing difficult with his current strength. He split open the entrance and stepped in, arriving beside the Path Lord in a few flashes. By the time he arrived, Yang Lai, Gui Haidao, and Feng Xiaotian had already been there. They all stared at the Path Lord. Life roared within the Path Lord, but his soul was absent. They revealed extremely ugly expressions. He's already dead, Jian Shen said with a heavy voice. Although he had had some disagreements with the Path Lord in the past, he did not feel any delight from his death. Instead, he became very heavy-hearted. It's the seal. Not only has the seal stopped him from reaching the origin realm, it's wiped out his soul as well, leaving behind an untouched body, Ong Lai said with a heavy voice. His complexion was horrendous. The expert who cast down the seal is just too vicious. I originally thought that the existence of the seal was just to stop people from reaching the origin realm. I never thought that it could kill people, said Gui Haidao. His complexion was horrendous as well. Feng Xiaotian stared at what was left of the Path Lord and shook his head. He sighed, he's actually able to reach such a level without origin energy. What a great seedling only to be destroyed like this. What a pity, what a pity. Chapter 1441, End of a Grand Gathering, Let's Go. Gui Haidao gently sighed in dejection before leaving with Yang Lai and Feng Xiaotian. Other than Feng Xiaotian, who still remained rather at ease, Yang Lai's and Gui Haidao's faces had both sunken. The outcome of the Path Lord was horrendous news for them. Jian Shen looked away from the Path Lord and glanced around the miniature world. He had already used his soul to envelope the entire place. Through his senses, he could clearly see that the carnal desires sect and the hall deep in the miniature world was filled with corpses. The ground had been dyed with blood while the heavy smell of blood lingered in the air. Jian Shen sighed gently and murmured, the Path Lord personally killed the people here. Looks like he wanted to sever his emotions and desires and reach the origin realm, but he didn't know that this world had been sealed, making it impossible to reach the origin realm unfortunately. Jian Shen gently shook his head. He did not touch anything in the miniature world. He left with some sympathy. In the current world, it was even difficult to become a Saint Emperor. Even Jian Shen felt some admiration for the Path Lord, seeing how he could create his own cultivation method to reach Saint Emperor and attain such great achievements all by himself. This was because the Path Lord must have achieved everything he had owned through his own hard work. He did not have the support of any powerful organizations, unlike the magical beasts with the Beast God Hall, which made cultivating much easier. He did not even have what the Protector clans and Mercenary City possessed. Jian Shen returned to the Jizum Kingdom. At that moment, the Saint Emperors had all roused from their cultivation. They were all ecstatic as a terrifyingly tremendous pressure radiated from them. They had already consolidated their cultivation completely. All the Saint Emperors gratefully bowed to Jian Shen when they saw him. A few of the magical beasts immediately swore their loyalty to Jian Che and said that they were willing to become guardians of the Changyang clan in the future. I appreciate your good intentions, except the threat of the world of Forsaken Saints is still present. Our utmost priority is to make preparations in order to fend off the foreign world. Once we completely eliminate this threat, I will definitely welcome you with open arms if you still want to come join the Changyang clan. Jian Shen faintly smiled and turned down the oaths of loyalty. If it was before, Jian Shen would have accepted several Class 9 magical beasts as guardians with great joy, but now, Saint Emperors were no longer as valuable to him as before. More importantly, he still did not know how many of these Saint Emperors would survive the battle against the foreign world. Jian Shen leaped onto the Ziying sword and left as a violet streak of light. He returned to Lore City. Currently, several hundreds of thousand people had already gathered outside the city. They were densely packed. All that was visible was a large crowd of heads. These people were not ordinary people. Every single one of them possessed impressive strength. Just the number of saint rulers had reached 10,000 while the number of heaven saint masters had reached over 100,000. Many heaven saint masters across the three races were just too far away and were unable to make it, or there would definitely have been many more people. Not all the saint rulers fulfilled the conditions required to have their strength increased. Instead, they had come with the intent of watching or trying to get lucky. However, even though that was the case, there were still over 1,000 saint rulers who fulfilled the requirements. Not only were there humans of the Tian Yuan continent, but there were also magical beasts and members of the sea race. Jian Shen hovered high in the sky as he looked down. After he gave a general explanation of the requirements of increasing the people's strength, he pulled out a large pile of neatly stacked comprehension tea leaves from his space ring. Around a dozen large tanks had already been prepared in an empty space below. They were all filled with the spring water from the springs of life, carrying a green tinge. They gave off a tremendous force of life. Several saint kings sat around the tanks, personally guarding them. With a wave of his hand, Jian Shen threw a large handful of leaves into each tank, splitting them evenly. Afterward, he pulled out several hundred violet cloud peaches and cut them into pieces, delivering them to the hands of all the heaven saint masters and saint rulers who fulfilled the requirements. The violet cloud peaches were all the 1st to 3rd grade. Only a very small fraction were of the 4th grade. He did not use any 5th grade immortal peaches. I've already given you the chance. Whether you can successfully break through will depend on your luck, Jian Shen said 2 hours later after everyone had received a cup of tea and a piece of a violet cloud peach. He did not speak very loudly, but his voice was clearly heard by everyone. Is this piece of unknown fruit and this cup of tea our chance at breaking through? All the people thought as they stared at the tea and fruit in their hands. None of them doubted Jian Shen, because over 100 saint emperors breaking through was the best example available. They all consumed the piece of fruit and cup of tea with joy and eagerness. A day later, the first rainbow clouds finally appeared in the sky. Afterward, the number of rainbow clouds rapidly increased, layering on top of one another and forming an extremely thick 9-colored rainbow cloud. The clouds illuminated the entire sky with colorful light. The rainbow clouds lasted for several days before beginning to disperse. This time, not all of the heaven saint masters and saint rulers manages to break through. Only around 70% of them advanced. The violet cloud peaches and comprehension tea leaves were immortal tier heavenly resources, but they had been split up so their medicinal effects suffered a great decrease. Coupled with the inferior talent of a few people, some failed to break through. Even though this was the case, the people who had failed to break through had all reached the peak of their current cultivation without any exceptions. The result was within Jian Shen's expectations. He hovered in the air and said, "This is all I can do for. Let's disperse. If you still haven't broken through, it shouldn't be too difficult to reach the next level of cultivation if you just go back and work hard on your cultivation." All the people below were filled with gratitude when they heard his words. They all bowed at Jian Shen politely before leaving. Even though a few of them had failed to break through, they would never forget the kindness that Jian Chen had shown them. Very soon, a large portion of the people outside the city had dispersed. Some had left in joy while others left with sighs. The people who had just come to watch had immediately become green with envy when they personally witnessed so many people reach Saint Ruler or Saint King. The grand gathering that had shaken up the humans, magical beasts, and sea race came to a close. However, the three races had finally recovered some of their power after the gathering. Not only had they fully made up for the lost Saint Kings, but they had gained over 100 Saint Emperors as well. This time, Jian Chen's generosity and kindness had won the sincere respect of all three races. Without any exaggeration, Jian Chen's prestige among the humans, the sea race, and the magical beasts had reached an unparalleled level. Chapter 1442. The heavenly enchantress Father Lore's city of the Jesson Kingdom became as peaceful as it had been before. However, the current Lore city was no longer the same as before. It had become a sacred city on the continent, and this sacredness had even spread among the sea race and magical beasts. This was because the experts of the three races would never forget the great increase in strength they had experienced there. Not only had the name of the city been permanently engraved in the hearts of the people who had successfully broken through, but even the experts who had not fulfilled the requirements held some respect for the city. This was because several thousand Saint Kings and several tens of thousands of Saint Rulers had been born outside the ordinary city in just a few short days. As Lore City became renowned among the three races, the position of City Lord became a representation of status as well. Although the City Lord of Lore City was not an impressive expert, the position's status increased with the city's fame and became extremely special. However, the position as City Lord had been taken up by a member of the Changyang clan long ago, and the king had given the city to the Changyang clan quite some time ago as well. Although Lore City became as peaceful as it had been before the gathering, everyone felt that the population of the city had clearly increased. Countless unfamiliar people poured into the city daily, forming groups of 3s or 5s. They were quite powerful and spent extravagantly, clearly originating from large clans or organizations. However, without any exceptions, all these people of great statuses would immediately become obedient when they entered the city. They would temporarily stay there as if they were on a pilgrimage, gazing in the direction of the Changyang clan from far away. Their eyes would be filled with respect and admiration. There were even many sea race, magical beast, and 100 races Saint Rulers and Saint Kings who settled there permanently. They all dismissed the violent temperaments they usually showed and become obedient law-abiding citizens of the city. Although the four races now gathered in Lore City, and the city became a great mixture of powerful and weak organizations, with some that had enmity with others, there was no conflict at all to everyone's surprise. No one dared to make trouble in the city, let alone start fighting. After gaining the agreement from his three aunts, Jian Chen used valuable heavenly resources to purify their bodies and alter their talent in the Changyang clan. They all embarked on a journey of cultivation, just so they could live longer. Bai Yuntian chose to continue her path as a radiant saint master. The cultivation methods she practiced were valuable ones personally gifted to her by the president of the Radiant Saint Master Union. Coupled with the personal guidance from the president and grand elder whenever they visit the city, Bai Yuntian's cultivation increased extremely quickly. Jian Chen's uncle, Bai Dao, had consumed a 5th-grade violet cloud peach and reached Saint Emperor as well. However, since his strength mostly came from Venerable Poison's word, he continued to practice his supreme poison arts after becoming a Saint Emperor. He sparred with newbies many times to perfect them. The ancient Tianmu clan had gained 2 Saint Kings as well, making up for the death of their ancestor and their lack of a Saint King. However, Jun Moheo and Wang Yinhong had both consumed 1st-grade peaches because of Tianmu Ling, unlike the other Saint Rulers who had only gained a piece. This allowed their strength to increase drastically. They could not be compared to ordinary Saint Kings. As one of Jian Chen's few friends, Jian Chen had gifted a 4th-grade violet cloud peach to Tianmu Ling, allowing her to reach the 9th heavenly layer as a Saint Ruler. In the City of God within the Holy Empire, just the city itself took up a space equivalent to half of the Jesson Kingdom. The masters of the city, the Tsar family, were not in a great position. Of the two Saint King ancestors they possessed, Tsar Vamos had died in the battle against the foreign world, while their strongest ancestor, Tsar Kaiyun, had vanished completely. Without the protection of Saint Kings, the Tsar family's influence immediately plummeted in the city and the Radiant Saint Master Union seemed to replace them. If it were not for the fact that the Radiant Saint Master Union had unintentionally started to lead the city, the masters of the city probably would have been replaced long ago. Even though that was the case, the many organizations and clans there all accepted the Radiant Saint Master Union as the masters of the city. At this moment, a violet streak of light suddenly appeared. It shot across the city of God with lightning-like speed and disappeared in the next moment. Jianchen stood on the Ziying sword within the violet streak of light. He looked at the enormous, prosperous city below as a sliver of reminiscence filled his eyes. He could not help but think of everything that had happened when he had come to this city as a Radiant Saint Master. Even though the city of God was vast, Jianchen crossed it in just a few seconds. The city below him vanished soon after. After traveling another 10,000 kilometers, Jianchen finally arrived in an ancient mountain range. On one of the mountain peaks stood a simple, lonely wooden hut. Jianchen slowed down. After reaching a distance of 100 meters from the hut, he dropped like fallen leaf. He drifted away from the sword and landed before the door of the wooden hut. The Ziying sword flew over by itself and stuck tightly to his back. Almost the same time Jianchen landed, a creak rang out and the door to the wooden hut opened. The white-robed Hao Wei walked out. He was haggard, worry and sorrow filled his face. He immediately became stunned when he saw Jianchen. However, he responded quickly and immediately tried to bow to Jianchen. Jianchen stepped forward to stop Hao Wu. He said, "There's no need to be like this, Senior Hao Wu. I've come without warning, so I hope I haven't disturbed you. Sovereign Jianchen is welcome at my humble abode. It's an honor, and I can't even express my joy, so how could it be described as a disturbance?" Hao Wu replied. Jianchen's arrival came as a surprise to him. The two of them conversed a little before Jianchen then asked in a straightforward manner, "Senior Hao Wu, I've come this time because I have something I want to ask you. How are you related to the heavenly enchantress?" Jianchen had kept this question to himself for a very long time. He had already guessed the answer, but he needed to confirm it. After all, he had had a child with the heavenly enchantress. Hao Wu became gloomy as soon as he mentioned the heavenly enchantress. He gently sighed and said, "The person referred to as the heavenly enchantress on the Tian Yuan continent is actually my daughter. Her name is Shengguan Mu'er." Jianchen's opinion of Hao Wu immediately underwent some slight changes. He had guessed this already, but he had still just been guessing in the end. There was still a chance that he could have been wrong. Learning the actual truth was completely different than just guessing. Then what about Shengguan Mu'er's mother? Jianchen continued with his questions. Hao Wu's face became filled with sorrow. He gently sighed. "When Mu'er turned 10, her mother passed away. Her death is directly connected to me. You can even say that I was the one who caused Mu'er's mother to die. It's all because I had far too many enemies back then, which caused this tragedy. Senior Hao Wu, I sense that your relationship with her doesn't seem great. She seemed to hate you very much. Is it because of what happened in the past?" Jianchen asked. "Sovereign Jianchen, may I know why you've suddenly come to me with these questions?" Hao Wu asked with a strange expression. Jianchen hesitated for a while before responding, "Senior Jianchen, to be honest, the heavenly enchantress and I were on good terms in the past. If I could help the two of you reconcile, it would obviously be for the best." Hao Wu's face lit up when he heard Jianchen's reason. He said, "If that's the case, I'll tell you what happened before. Sovereign Jianchen, I really do hope that you can help me out. I don't want Mu'er to hate me anymore." "I will definitely do everything I can," Jianchen replied in a serious voice. Hao Wu eagerly nodded. After another period of silence, he said with some sorrow, "The death of Mu'er's mother is only one of the reasons why she hates me. The other is because I still can't forget about Kaiyun. I met Kaiyun even before her mother. Back then, if it were not for the objections of Tsayin's seniors, we would have married and I wouldn't have met Moor's mother. It's just a pity that I was just a mercenary back then, without any background, while Kaiyun was the treasured daughter of the Tsar family. The tremendous difference in our statuses became the obstacle that prevented me from being with Kaiyun. After that, I met Moor's mother. At that time, I was just a mercenary. I accepted a mission to escort the daughter of a large clan to a place several tens of thousand kilometers away. She was Moor's mother, Shangguan Shuyan. Shangguan Shuyan's clan, the Shangguan clan, had some enemies. As I escorted her, the party was attacked time and time again by those enemies. Along the way, all the guards died, leaving only me and Shangguan Shuyan. We fled together. Because of an accident, Shangguan Shuyan became pregnant with Moor. It was a complete accident. Back then, Shangguan Shuyan and I entered a zone of danger. We were both heavily poisoned and intoxicated, which led to the mistake. Afterward, I married Shangguan Shuyan with no other choice. We became partners. However, I always longed for Kaiyun, and Shuyan had learned about my story with her as well. Although I spent those years living with Shuyan, my mind was not present at all. Shuyan was never happy during the years we spent together, and her unhappiness was passed on to Moor in her youth. Not only had I failed to be a good husband back then, but I had failed to be a good father as well. I basically did not show any concern for the two of them at all. One day, my enemies suddenly came looking for me. I just happened to be out, and when I returned, the Shangguan clan had been wiped out because of me. Shuyan had collapsed in her own pool of blood. Moor only managed to avoid the disaster by hiding in a secret room. I was only a Heaven Saint Master back then, so I did not have the right to invite a Class 7 Radiant Saint Master to save Shuyan with origin energy, so she left me forever. My daughter always hated me because of that incident and has never accepted me as her father. Chapter 1443, Visiting the 100 Races. Hao Wu slowly narrated what he had gone through to Jian Chen. His face, weathered from all the storms of blood, was riddled with sorrow. Not only did his face express the anguish he felt because of his relationship with his daughter, but there was also grief for his dead wife. I had been filled with regret regarding the matters of the past. If I could return to the past, if the heavens gave me this opportunity, I would give up everything without any hesitation just so I could properly look after Shuyan and Moor, to show them love and make up for my mistakes back then, Hao Wu said painfully. Jian Chen stared at Hao Wu with mixed feelings. He understood why the heavenly enchantress and Hao Wu's relationship had become like this after learning about Hao Wu's past. Basically everything was because of Hao Wu's mistakes. After a period of silence, Jian Chen looked at the wooden hut behind Hao Wu. He said, "And what will you do regarding Zartsayan's matter?" "Kaiyun," Hao Wu murmured softly before looking at the wooden hut behind him. His face immediately became a mixture of emotions. Falling silent for quite some time, he seemed to have finally made a decision. He said, "Tsayin's become like this because of me. I don't want her to remain unconscious forever. I wish Kaiyun will wake up. If Moor can forgive me, then I'll leave Kaiyun once she does wake up and never see her again." Hao Wu's voice trembled quite a lot near the end. When he said those last words, his face was completely pale and his heart ached as if it was being stabbed by a needle. Jian Chen sighed inside. He knew that Hao Wu was deeply in love with Kaiyun, but even Jian Chen could not comment on this complicated situation. After a moment of silence, Jian Chen said, "Senior Hao Wu, please let me try to wake her up." Hao Wu's gloomy eyes lit up slightly. Tsar Kaiyun had been unconscious for a very long time. He had tried everything, yet she still did not awaken. Even the president of the Radiant Saint Master Union could do nothing, throwing up both his hands. Hao Wu immediately saw some hope because of Jian Chen. Jian Chen entered the wooden hut. He saw Tsar Kaiyun laying there silently. Life was present in her body while her breathing cycle was long and gentle. She did not have any injuries, but she was still unconscious. Her noble and beautiful face bore the traces of sorrow. She seemed rather pitiful. Kaiyun burned her soul in an attempt to die back then. I saved her, but her soul is extremely injured. Although I've given her various medicines that can heal the soul over the past few years, she still hasn't woken up. Maybe Tsayin's heart is already dead and she's sealed herself off, unwilling to wake up, Hao Wu said with pain evident in his voice. Jianshan said after a moment of thought, I have a great heavenly resources that specializes in healing the soul. It can help the soul in wondrous ways. I can try it and see if she wakes up or not. Injuries to the soul were the most difficult matters to deal with. Even Jianshan did not have many methods to deal with them. All he could do was use a heavenly resource that targeted injuries to the soul. Jianshan took out the amethyst spirit bamboo he had obtained from the Xianhuang microcosm and refined a droplet of amethyst sap. A unique fragrance immediately filled the hut. From a single breath, Hao Wu felt his mind clear up and become free. It was as if his soul had become more consolidated. Hao Wu was extremely shocked. He stared fixedly at the droplet of sap and his breathing became ragged. He knew for sure that this was a fantastic heavenly resource for healing the soul. He could not help but feel even more confident that Zar Kaiyun would wake up again. Jianshan dropped the sap onto Zar Tsayin's forehead. As soon as it came into contact with her, it silently dissolved, seeping into Zar Tsayin's soul. Very soon, Zar Tsayin's expression changed. The residual sorrow on her face gradually vanished, before being replaced by peace. Like a sleeping beauty, she lay there silently with her eyes closed. Jianshan and Hao Wu stood before the bed as they stared at her. Using the amethyst spiritual bamboo was Jianshan's only method of waking her up. If even that did not work, he would have nothing left to use. Hao Wu was extremely nervous. He knew how valuable the drop of sap was. With his experience and knowledge, he could tell with a single glance that it was an extremely valuable heavenly resources, something that belonged to legends of the continent. If even something from a legend was unable to wake her up, he would be out of ideas as well. Time passed quietly in silence, 2 hours. 4 hours, half a day passed very quickly. Zar Kaiyun still did not show any signs of waking up. Kaiyun, you have to wake up. You have to wake up, Hao Wu murmured as he clenched Zar Tsayin's hand. This was his last hope. A day later, Zar Kaiyun remained unconscious. Jianshan could not help but sigh. He knew that the amethyst spiritual bamboo could not help her anymore. The injuries of her soul had already been healed by the drop of sap. Her current state had nothing to do with the injuries she had experienced anymore. Hao Wu was completely pale. Pain and despair filled his eyes. His final hope had vanished as well. Looks like only your daughter, the heavenly enchantress, can wake up Zar Kaiyun, Jianshan frowned. Persuading the heavenly enchantress would not be easy. Mu'er? Can Mu'er really do it? Hao Wu asked, surprised. He rarely came in contact with his daughter and everything he knew about her based off rumors. As a result, he did not have a good understanding of her at all. Jianshan knew more about her. There's no one else in this world besides the heavenly enchantress if you want Zar Kaiyun to wake up, Jianshan swore. But Senior Hao Wu, getting your daughter to treat Zar Kaiyun will definitely be difficult. As a result, we can't rush this matter. Leave it to me. I'll visit 3 Saint Island in a few days to see if I can persuade her, said Jianshan. Hao Wu bitterly nodded and said nothing else. Afterward, Jianshan took out a 5th grade violet cloud peach and comprehension tea leaf to give to Hao Wu. He wanted Hao Wu to become a saint emperor. However, Hao Wu declined. Being a saint emperor would definitely give him several thousand more years of life. To Hao Wu, that was several thousand more years of torment. Jianshan put away the heavenly resources and left. He flew into the distance on his sword. Several hours later, when Jianshan landed, he had arrived in a great desert. This was the territory of the 100 Races, the Wasteland Continent. You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.